Net. And welcome, friends, to another episode of the At the Net podcast, powered by Tex-Mex Productions. Working the soundboards in the back of the house are our producers, D-Mac and Dave the Brain.
It's you, man.
Time to say hello to your hosts, Craig Bell and AJ Shabria, as they're about to take us through 3 sets of tennis, talking life and all the news as it seems to them. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Bell.
All right. Thanks to our At the Net podcast girl. That would be the great Margot Carter. Very nice voice, right? Wouldn't you say, AJ?
She's got the Queen's English, and I thought when you said great, I thought you were going to go with a bit of Aussie slang.
I am.
You are? Here it comes.
Because we have a Bonzer or a Ripper introduction. That was probably, I was holding it back.
You were.
Yeah. So I always like to say the great Margot Carter, but then we say Bonza. Bonza. Is it Bonza?
Ripper.
Bonza or Ripper? Ripper?
Craigo, help us pronounce this.
What's the Australian?
Well, you got Bonza.
Bonza.
You do it Ripper, Bonza.
Yep.
I don't get to say that. I think what happens is that words that you've got to explain are the ones that you start to use less and less. So, from the Australian side of it, I don't use those too many because when you say it normally, it's like, well, what does that mean? It's like, okay, well, let me have to, let me go through 3 minutes of explaining the Australian isms.
Well, I
tend to lose those ones early on.
We Americans have clearly adopted no worries, but we like Ripper and we like Bonza, so we might use it.
So
yeah, good.
Well, welcome, fans of the great game. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 78. 78.
Not too shabby, pal.
Wow, that's pretty good. At the Net podcast.
About a year and a half. Yeah, well done.
We're into it with AJ Chabry. That would be AJC and CB1, Craig Bell, who are talking the great game of tennis as it seems to us. Thanks also go out to our good amigos at Tex-Mex Productions. That would be Darian D. Mac McBrayer and Dave the Brain, who I just spoke with about 5 seconds ago from back of the house. Actually, he's from back of the house in Maryland. He lives in Maryland these days, but through it's amazing how you can do all this stuff. And we were talking to him, and so he helped me be on the soundboards, moving the dials and buttons to make us look and sound like real people tonight, right?
We're looking real. We sound hopefully good.
Yeah.
And I've grown a beard in honor of Craig O'Shaughnessy, who advised me to shave my head and to grow some bloody facial hair about a year ago. And here I am. I'm trying to be like you, man.
It works. I look back at older pictures, and I'm trying to get the hair going. I'm clean here, and I think this is a better way to go.
Yeah, looks good. You guys look.
Anyway.
I did not go with that look. Sorry about that. I didn't get the memo, but also it'll come. All right.
One day.
Also, be sure to check out our good work on Fireside, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, and YouTube. Actually, we're on YouTube tonight, and we're twitching too. Did you know that we're twitching?
Twitch.
Yeah. Are you a twitcher?
I haven't done it, but I like it.
I mean, he's a twitcher, too. I'm
ready to embrace it.
That guy, he's a twitcher. I can tell. He's a Twitch guy. All the important communication sites the kids find popular today. And if you're a female, sorry, guys, and would like to read the opening intro for At the Net podcast and be an At the Net podcast girl like the great Margot Carter, let us know. We're always looking for new female voices to do the intro, even in a foreign language, right?
Language, accent, either way, we're happy.
Yep. So speaking of Bonza and Ripper, our guest this evening is pretty Bonzer, pretty Ripper, isn't he?
For sure. Very remarkable guy, incredible story, and just such a prominent name in tennis today, and we're proud to have him on the show.
He's Bee Cave, Texas' favorite son. That would be Craig O'Shaughnessy. Not Austin, Texas, but Bee Cave, Texas, right?
Bee Cave, we're in the little suburb out in the hill country, and it's a great place. I grew up in Albury, Australia, phenomenal place as a young kid to, mature in high school and all of that. But I think Bee Cave, Texas isn't too bad either.
Have you seen any caves yet with bees in it?
None. Rattlesnakes, see some rattlesnakes, see some coyotes, see some roadrunners, see some copperheads. I haven't seen, they say there's a mountain lion down here somewhere. Haven't seen it. But yeah, lots of wildlife.
Have you seen the bats under the Congress Bridge yet come out at night?
We don't venture down that way too much. I know they're there. So anytime I want to venture down and see the bats. Maybe when it gets warmer.
Well, you're a pretty woke guy. You'd like to go downtown. I think you're one of those guys that's
he's a cosmopolitan, cool guy.
Anybody that rocks the hair and no hair and then the shave look. I think he fits in down there with the group down there at UT. He's like I said, just a woke lit guy, right?
With 2 young kids, and my boys turned 14 today.
Happy birthday to young Rourke.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. And my little girl Riley turns 10 the end of next week. So, with 2 young kids and sports after school, we hang in Bee Cave a lot. We don't get downtown too much.
You're a suburbanite, not an urbanite, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's out there in the suburban. He's out there, probably got about, a couple hundred acres,
He's got land, man. He's got it.
Not really.
Well, we're glad to have Craig. We've been wanting to have Craig, our buddy Craig from Bee Caves, Texas, on for a number of podcasts, and so finally we found a convenient date in his schedule that's convenient for him. And like I said, we really appreciate your time coming on with us. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. We're gonna go 3 sets. Hopefully, we're gonna go in before midnight tonight. So I think no, we'll go as long as you want.
Craig is big on first strike tennis. I think the points aren't going to be very long, right?
That's right. Yeah. He likes to serve and volley. He likes to serve and volley. Get that point over real quick, doesn't he?
That's it, man.
I love to serve and volley.
You still do? You still play?
I work with 2 people down here. One is a young boy he was top 5 in 12s. He's now up into 14s. And I also get on court once a week with a gentleman named Mike Lane. Mike has a court at his house. It's a gorgeous setup. I filmed Getting Tight, which is the latest course with Jeff Greenwald. We filmed it at his place. So Mike and I get out, at least once a week. We actually hit some on Saturday as well. And the typical time we spend on court is 2 or 3 games out of the hand, really just to get a workout more than anything. Staying at the back of the court's not my deal. And then we work on Mike's approach game, coming to the net, how to flow through the ball, where to take that first volley, distances and balance and all of that. And then we typically play a set afterwards. And I will absolutely be throwing in some strategically play serve and volley. Typically, I like to save it a little bit at the start. I don't want Mike to know that it's coming, but 2 all 30-40, out wide, and I'm straight to the net. That's a given. It's coming.
Awesome.
Well, that's. I'm glad he still plays tennis because it's fun. I played tennis today.
Yeah, you had a match today.
Yeah, I had an old fart match today. So we got out. We were at your old club. I was over there at T-Bar-M with Darren and Byron and a few other guys that you probably know. But it was fun to be over there at T-Bar-M where tennis is it's the hot spot of one of the hot spots in the Metroplex. And Craig worked there for how long did you work there? A couple of years? 4 or 5 years? 10 years?
I would say. I got there at the end of 2001 and left around 2010, so almost a decade, I'd say.
Yeah, a lot of good memories there, I'm sure. You got so if we peel back a little bit, so you're a little nipper, they say in Australia. I know nipper, I know that word. So you're a little nipper in Australia.
In Aubrey, where is that? Which state? Is that in Victoria or New South Wales?
It's in New South Wales. It's right on the state border, right on the Murray River.
Yep.
3 hours drive north of Melbourne, 5.5 south of Sydney. The Man from Snowy River was filmed fairly close up in the mountains. In our town, you can see snow, in winter on the mountains. So, if you kind of go 30 minutes one way, you're up into these gorgeous, valleys and rivers and mountains, and 30 minutes the other way, dead flat, arid. Irrigation is basically, it's the start of irrigation out there. So it's right on that border, and it's a really, really nice place.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I know the Man from Snowy River. That's Kirk Douglas, who played not only one role but 2 roles. So he played 2 brothers. One a good brother, one a interesting brother. So I like that. I like westerns, and I watch a lot of westerns. So I know
that's about it. That's an Aussie western, if ever there was one.
Yeah, no, it was a really fine movie. I enjoyed. I know exactly the scenery, what you're talking about. So I have a.
What a beautiful place to grow up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was, again, everything is outdoors. It's all about sport. My sister married a farmer, so, on weekends or school holidays, I'm down on the farm. I'm driving tractors. I'm planting crops, dealing with sheep or dealing with cattle or dealing with dairy or, planting rice or wheat, baling hay, all of that stuff was a really big part of what I did, in my downtime as a kid. And then my dad had a place up at Jingellic, which is, a small country town. He was involved with cars for a long time and then got involved with mining. So, whether it's weekends or holidays, I'm either playing sport or I'm on the farm or I'm up in this kind of hill country area, hanging out there. So a really fun, different kind of childhood.
Yeah, so we're speaking with Craig O'Shaughnessy. I was doing some background work, and it says Craig is an Aussie by birth, but a Texan by choice. So that's an interesting statement. I've never heard it put that way, but you said that you grew up in Australia, you live in Texas. It's a great state. We all enjoy Texas. I know Adrian's not from here. I'm not from here, but we
got here as soon as we could.
We got here really fast, and we stayed here. This is a great country and especially a great state. It could be a country, you never know. The way politics are going these days. We won't talk about that right now. But like I said, Craig got over here, played tennis at Baylor University. Sikkim, right? The Bears? Were you a Bear?
Absolutely. Yeah, I played it. Well, I played my freshman year. I went to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Didn't really know what I was getting into and spent a year there, and then went to Saddleback Junior College in Southern California. That was probably my favorite year. We won state as a team. I was runner-up in state in singles, won Ojai doubles. Really had an enjoyable year. Then went and played at Baylor my junior and senior year, and again had a great time. But it wasn't when Baylor was at the height of its tennis. I played one on a pretty ordinary team, and we were more about, enjoying ourselves and enjoying the tennis rather than competing for national championships.
Craig, when was that? Late 80s or early 90s?
Yeah, so my freshman year was 86, 87 in Tulsa, 87, 88 in Saddleback, and then 89, 90, 90, 91. And then I needed an extra year to graduate with a journalism degree. So I spent one more year after my eligibility had expired. So,
it's wonderful you say journalism. Craig and I are both writers, and everybody thinks of you, and they think of analytics and stats, and your background is you're a beautiful writer, not just mechanically, but I think we all enjoy the work you've done on Wall Street Journal, New York Times, ATP Tour site, not just analyzing the game with a keen eye and evidence-based numbers, but also you're a hell of a writer. So tell us, I want to ask now how you went from journalism to the hard data side. And then my follow-up question might be a little bit about the future of what you're doing, like artificial intelligence, things like this.
Right out of Baylor, I didn't know which way I was going to go. Do I follow a journalism path and writing and probably staying in sports writing? I looked, is it Sports Illustrated or something like that? I don't know. But then I went the tennis route and the coaching route and got involved with a company called Peter Burwash International.
PBI, right?
PBI, yeah. Their world headquarters was in the Woodlands, so not too far away, down in Houston. I spent 3.5 years there. And it was a great grounding for a young coach to learn about our sport and, what's the purpose of the backswing? Why is it different? Why do different people do different things? So I really enjoyed my time there. I got to get involved with the PBI tennis show where there's juggling and there's skits. And we did a tour where I trained in the Woodlands, and then we went out to California for a couple of days. Then we went to Seoul, Korea for about 4 days we did 3 shows there. And it was the only time in the history that they had this opening where you're serving, there's 4 guys and they come to the net and we're throwing rackets and spinning them back and forth, catching them, juggling them, throwing them back. And, there's 1,000 things that can go wrong in this opening. So we nailed the first one with the Grand Hyatt in Seoul. We nailed the next one somewhere else, and we nailed the next one. And, people that have been in the show a long time said, we've never nailed 3 openings. There's a racket drop, there's a ball gone, and we nailed it. So then we went to Jakarta.
Indonesia, right?
And we did one in Jakarta. And then we went to Bali, and we nailed that, and we were on such a high. And then we go to we circle around to the Al Bustan Palace in the Middle East in Oman, and that was our last show. And we put these flawless shows together. And the opening is we serve and we come to the net. And I remember there was I go cross court with the first couple of balls, and then the guy in front, both on the other side, throw their rackets spinning at us, and we throw their rackets. So we got all these 4 rackets in the air. And for the first time, the guy next to me, the racket just keeps going all the way to the baseline. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Because we're all in sync. So do I wait for him to run back and get it? Do I continue? But, it's the 4 of us. And as soon as that breaks down, something else breaks down and something else breaks down. And the crowd, you can hear the crowd going, oh.
Groan.
And we're just been all over these other places, nailing this opening. I once did it in a World Team Tennis match that featured Bjorn Borg out in Sacramento, I think in California, was the location. And, Borg's going to play, and we're doing these. So that was a lot of fun and really enjoyable, and I learned a lot. And I guess tying back to where it's the analytics. I mean, I tell the story. I don't know whether I proudly say this or not, but I almost failed math in high school. I hated it. Every part of algebra and calculus and addition and subtraction was not my bag. I like to write, but I got involved with, videoing matches. My dad, it's just one of those things where my dad bought one of the first ever camcorders in Australia, and he just bought it for family movies. But it stayed in our family, and it worked for a long time. And I just started taking him to the tennis courts and filming kids and putting it on VHS tapes and going home and watching it, and very quickly learned that, even with a stroke, the player doesn't understand what they're doing. You show them a forehand, a backhand, or a serve, and they're like, oh, I had no idea I was doing that. And I'm like, I've been telling you that you've been, too short or too low or whatever for weeks. And they're like, as soon as they saw it, they get it. So then I started filming points, and then I started recording points. And, coaching tennis is like having a pie chart where you're working on the technical, you're working on footwork, you're working on balance, you're working on contact, you're working on strategy, you're working on keeping calm, you're working on understanding the opponent, you're working on trying to put all your things in together, and you put all these things into a pie chart. And for myself, I quickly discovered that strategy was the biggest part of that pie. Understanding how to play opponents. And, you don't need to go out there and play great. You just need to know how that guy plays and make that guy play bad. And so video helped me with that. And later on, Dartfish really helped me with that. So, the analytics side is not really about the numbers. It's about the strategy. But the numbers tell you which strategy is better than the other.
Is most effective. In one of the things that I find fascinating is I think it was probably right before I met you, which was probably 2001. I charted a match of 2 French Open champions, Moya and Chang, and you'd think, this is at the U.S. Open, so it's not a clay court, but these are baseline guys. And I couldn't believe that it was 5.85 shots per rally at the end of 5 sets. And I remember my wife, I guess, fiancée at the time, looking at me like, you're up till 2 in the morning writing some crap down on a yellow pad. Like, what is it? And like you, I wasn't huge on calculus, but pretty easy for me to figure out that, it's basically serve, return, shot, error. And that was back then. And now when you have trotted out these stats that it's about 4 shots, I thought, my son and I will refute this. We're going to watch a couple of baseliners named Novak and Nishikori in the, I believe it was Indy or Cincy. It was a summer hardcourt match, and it was something like 6-5. Novak won. And I was sort of determined to think, it's going to be 5.8 again. It's going to be just like Moy and Chang. Would you believe it was 3.98 shots per?
I believe that, man.
It was this much less than he said it would be.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
So sorry,
Yeah, the average, when I first started really digging in, the average rally length was one of the early stats that I gravitated to because it just kind of shows you that it's a game of short. So for a period probably of 6 months, outside of the regular stats that we had, when I started doing a lot of average rally length analysis, that was a big deal for a period of time, and then evolved from there.
Interesting, Craig. I know. I'll give you a quick example. I wasn't able to watch the final from Montpellier in France today. It was Roberto Bautista Agut and David Goffin. And they played a great match, and it was 3 sets. And the 8-minute highlight reel had me feeling like, wow, 18-shot rally there, or 12-shot rally. But I'm curious to see what the real numbers are, because if you see the non-highlight points, the serve and a miss, and the serve +1 that forced errors, which brings me to, I'm sure it would be shorter, which brings me to one of those stats that I felt is not ballyhooed, is not very consistent, is the idea of forcing errors. Craig, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you said, it's not necessarily always about playing your absolute best, but it's to figure out what's effective to make that guy not play his best, and that's to force errors. If you can put in a nutshell a couple things that you feel make people make errors.
Yeah. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to circle back to Goffin. To Goffin.
Oh, good.
So Goffin has got to now go from Montpellier to Rotterdam, and he plays Jan-Lennard Struff in the first round.
And you work with Jan-Lennard Struff.
I work with Jan-Lennard Struff.
Love it.
So I'm heavily invested in this little scenario. So as a strategy coach, the first thing I did when they said the draws come out is, and he's playing Goffin, is Jan played Goffin in the Cincinnati tournament at the US Open, the week before, and he beat him. So my first thing to do is to go back and that match I've already got tagged, I've already got all the analytics, but I need to make 2 videos. And actually, with this one, I went a little bit further. I made 4. Typically, it's all the points, all the best patterns of play Jan won when serving, and all the best patterns of play Jan won when returning. But I went a little further as I broke it down: first serve and second serve, serving and returning. So I've already sent them 4 videos, and I said, "Here's your best patterns of play." Mm-hmm. So also, when you've got that video there, I go in Dartfish, and at the bottom. I used to kind of go over the scoreboard, but now I put it to the side so to make sure the player can see the score as well. But I'll write 7 or 8 words next to that, such as, step in and attack down the middle, attack position A, whatever the strategy is, backhand, and I get all these good patterns of play and I put them one after the other. So let's say it's Jan's first serve's good, really good first serves out wide.
Right.
And let's say on 5 of them, he's serving and volleying. So I'll start the video with position 1, serve and volley. That's what I'll write on the bottom. And he'll just watch himself only ever winning points. Sometimes it's very useful to show losing points, but not these videos, not before a match. So he's got 5 points in a row, serving and volleying out wide and winning the point. And then the next one will be position 8, serve and volley. Then the next will be serve +1 forehands approaching. Then the next will be serve +1 forehand winners to 8. And I group them all together and I make a video of 3 to 4 minutes long. So I've got 4 videos. So I sent them through, and Jan's coach, Carsten Arians, great coach, great friend, emails back, and we're chatting about this, and he's like, these videos are critical for this match because we've got a WhatsApp group text, and Jan at the start of the year called it. I actually gave him a nickname because I'm like, sometimes Jan's one of these guys who's like 6'5".
He's large.
He's a gentle giant. These big guys that they're just so nice. They're almost too nice. So I said, Jan, your court presence, you need to be, like I say, these other guys on the tour look at you. And you know what they see when you're playing well, which, last year, we worked together, and he has his best ranking up in, I think it was around 30, maybe 29, I think he's got to, somewhere right around there. So the thing was, I've got to create imagery in his mind, because sometimes he plays too passive, sometimes he plays too nice. And I said, Jan, these guys, they fear you. They see you come on the court, and I had to create this image. And I said, you're like a grizzly bear, and then I'm like a German grizzly bear coming out of the Black Forest, out of, south of Munich.
Yeah.
And you've got blood dripping all over you. You've just had breakfast. It's some deer. And I'm like, that's who you are. That's your persona on the court. And you're coming at guys. And your job is to play big. And your job is to punch these guys in the mouth right at the start. They need to know they're playing the German Grizzly. So we go to January, and Jan creates this WhatsApp group called the German Grizzly, which is perfect. I'm like, this is great. So then he's doing really well in the ATP Cup. He beat Raonic. And another good win, and I forget, it escapes me right now, and then took a set off Rublev and lost in 3. So it was doing well. And there's a gif of a bear, like kind of in a river, and it's like this. It goes, and it just kind of snarls. So each time Jan's doing well and winning matches, and things are. We're talking about in the group about being aggressive and attacking. I put that GIF in there because it's like this. When you can boil a player's persona down to a GIF, you've got it. And this is these jaws are open and is roaring, and it's like, that's who he needs to be, because sometimes. You can be a player that rallies, and we say putting the ball in the court's not a bad thing. You don't need to redline your game. You don't need to redline, but you need to wear the pants on the court. That's who you are. So all of that circles back now to David Goffin.
Be good. So
Carsten says, very rightly so. Carsten's always saying, hey, Craig, what about this? What about this? What about this? And he goes, Craig, we should look at, what Goffin's doing well now. He's just, doing well in this tournament. We didn't text today, but he's won. But he's playing Bautista Agut. It's a different match.
Totally different guy.
Match. So I've already made the decision that I am not going to show Jan video of that match, because Bautista Agut is going to be staying back. He's going to be hitting backhands. He's going to be going cross court. I don't even need to see a ball hit. And I know where these guys are serving. I know what the rallies will look like. I know they're trading backhand to backhand to backhand. I know every now and then they're going to run around, try and do something with a run around forehand. I know every now and then they're going to try and pull out wide. But it's going to be a backhand cross court dominated match. It's not about the serve. It's not about really the return. It's about trying to upgrade from neutral to offense through an ad court rally, which is not a German Grizzlies persona. So when you see the video of Cincinnati, it's incredible. This is probably the best highlight reel of Jan's life. That, you know, the tactics, you know, we've got really specific key tactics against Goffin. Really, if a ball's here, it goes there. You know, some players, you can do a little bit of everything, but Goffin's the kind of guy who's like, this is what he's going to do, and this is what you're going to do against him, and it's crystal clear. And the video shows that. So it also shows him being really, you know, it's aggressive, but aggressive is not necessarily even hitting winners. It's about aggressive with core position, which goes back to your question of the ways to force an error. So there's 8 ways. There's 8 ways to force an error on a tennis court. You look at the court in general, and it's consistency. Then you cut the court up, which is direction, and then it's depth, and then it's height. So you can't cut it up anymore. So then you go to the ball, which is spin and power, my court position, and the time I give you, the time I allow you to prepare for your shot. So out of those 8, with Jan, you know, the German Grizzly, we want to have tapping into all of those 8, not just power, not just direction. Sometimes it's even taking a little power off. But it's certainly, you know, his core position is everything. The ability to say, I'm going to the net and I'm backing myself. And you know, it's kind of a little bit like the old days, you know, in the 60s and 70s when guys would go to the net. You know, I remember being a young coach and a young player and us talking about this concept that I'm going to the net and the ball is not getting past me. I refuse. It's not going to go past me. And, you know, I grew up playing on grass courts and, you know, we'd talk about it. We'd see these really good grass court players, you know, they'd hit the slice approach or whatever it is. And there was, you know, they might miss the volley. They might miss the volley. They might get lobbed maybe over the head, but the ball was not going to get past them either side. And once you have that mentality, it goes a long way to actually making it happen.
Well, that's great, and that brings us into.
Is it okay if I have a sip of water after that?
Well deserved, man. You answered both those questions.
You can take a towel too. You know, you take a little towel, spritz yourself. Hey, can I ask a couple of questions?
Please,
you got some people online. Just a couple of questions here. We've got people actually watching that actually are interested in what Craig has to say.
Love it.
Yeah, we actually have one of our own folks that Craig has spent some time in the booth with. That would be the great Craig Carcino. He's actually watching. He goes, ask COS what was the most unbelievable match point he's ever witnessed in person.
I know exactly.
This is a setup. This is probably a setup, but
it's 100%. It's a setup. It's Bruno Echegaray against.
He was a prominent player, Davis Cup from Mexico.
God bless you. It's like a Gesundheit, isn't it? Yeah. What's that? He's from Uruguay.
I think Bruno. Who was it? Jesse Witten down the other end?
This is at the Dallas Challenger roughly 9 years ago.
Yeah, it's, you know, back in the day at T-Bar, I got involved with essentially, you know, what you're doing now, Craig, with Tex-Mex Productions. And you know, I remember probably maybe the 2000, no, hang on a second. When did I get there? It's all 2001 I got there, so maybe like 2002, 2003. I had my computer courtside. I had a camcorder. It was when Benedict Dorsch won it, maybe 2003. So I had a website that you would go to the T-Bar website and click to it, and I would video some points. And as soon as it did it, I downloaded it to my computer, I cut it up, and I put it online. I had a live blog. So I had a live blog going after each, maybe not after each point, but after games, so people could see what was going on. And then in between typing furiously into this blog, I would drop video in there. So, you know, it was essentially the first kind of webcast or, you know, whatever you want to call it of Challenger tennis. And, you know, we were doing Bruno and basically, you know, it gets to, you know, a third set tiebreaker and match point for the opponent and a first serve fault and a second serve foot fault was called.
Oh, well, that's that one. I remember that match. It was Whitten.
I was sitting next to Mike Fahey, and we're commentating on this, and you get this second serve foot fault, and it sticks with me so clear to this day. There's a lot of things I've forgotten through the years, but not this. So as soon as the foot fault was called, Bruno froze, and the umpire very, very quickly said, "Game, set, and match." I think it's Jesse Whitten on the other side.
Yes, Craig said.
Get it done. It's like we're not going to have an argument here. This could go south. This whatever, but it's like game, set, and match. So the umpires kind of removed themselves from the equation. So Bruno stands there, and it's deathly quiet. And I start saying something. I'm like, I've never seen something like this before. But I'm whispering because it's so quiet in there that any noise is going, you could just, it's like a volcano. There's fury. Bruno hasn't said a thing yet, but he's standing there in complete disbelief. But it's like a volcano. You know it's coming. And so I'm whispering because I don't want to be the guy with the severed head from the racket. I don't want him to hear me. And Mike's saying something, and I'm saying something, and then Bruno loses it. So he pulls his racket up and smashes it into the ground, and he turns sideways. So the camera's looking down the court, and so you can see, out to the doubles line, but you can't see past that on this end. And the lady that called the foot fault is over here, off screen. So Bruno plows the racket into the ground, smashing it, and then starts walking straight to her. Pulls it back again, hammers into the ground, keeps walking right at it, gets closer. Third one's about the double sideline. Hammers it again, and as he keeps walking and pulling it back, you kind of know that this next one is her. If he does it again, it's going to be her. And he's in a rage, and I'm like, oh my goodness, please don't hit this lady over there. And he kind of coils back and stops. Like, oh my God, thank goodness. Okay, we've averted serious injury. Then he throws the racket to the other end. Then he throws the chair over, and Mike and I are in. We're just happy we got out of there alive. So that's what Craig's referring to.
Yeah, that's the one that made ESPN. I think that was that night, wasn't it? Wasn't that the one that it was? I said, here's what's happening in Dallas, Texas. Yeah.
What a great question from a third Craig there. That's Carcino.
I hope Craig Carcino's back is doing better. I saw that he had some problems with it and had some back pain. So
we hope you're better, buddy.
Yeah, he gives us the heart. Says he's doing good. So
nice.
So he's doing fine. So Warren Pretorius, somebody that Craig knows kind of okay. He said, ask about some projects with tennis analytics.
Definitely. That's. I'm going to ask you.
Is that one down the road? You think?
For sure. Second set for sure. Warren, Weber State Wildcat.
That is.
I definitely want to get to that. I want Craig to kind of take us through. When we talk current and future projects, he'll take us through what is tagging and how he comes into that with Warren's group.
Is tagging spray painting like downtown?
Like graffiti.
Graffiti. That's not the right tagging.
It's basically the same thing. We've got a comment from John Worley who says Bruno had quite the reputation in Mexico junior tennis also. So Bruno came by this temper, huh?
Yeah. Well, it was a very tough moment for him. I mean, I think too, when we go back, I think he had maybe match points earlier on, maybe at 5-4, serve for at 5-4. It was a long, hard battle, and there was a lot of emotions. And to see a foot fault called, and we went back and watched the video because the camera's right behind, so you can't really see. It was tough. It was just one of those moments in sport that it's like. Did
Jesse Whitten, did he pick up his stuff and start walking off, getting out of there?
He was like everybody else. He's in disbelief. They went and shook hands, and he's like, goodness, he shouldn't have probably won it, but then when you have a situation like that, everybody just like, you don't want to see the car.
You want quiet, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Are there any other questions, or we get to?
We can get to some other ones. Carcino said surgery 10th of March.
Oh, good.
All
good.
Right.
Craig,
surgery.
Yeah, he's going to have some surgery, and then
that's in about a week.
Our buddy Davor, everybody knows Davor.
Takaris.
There he is. Great job, you three.
Buddy.
Right,
yeah.
So, hello down in Covington, Louisiana, right?
Yeah, suburb of New Orleans.
That's right.
Craig, another quick question. You mentioned Jan Leonard Struff. I'd love for you to take us through some of the formative work you did last year. Last time I saw you work with Alexei Popyrin, who had a hell of a week just now, and beat one of the crazy, amazing players, Sasha Bublik, the Russian. I guess he beat him in 3 sets today in Singapore. Tell us some of the things that you worked with him on that got him to this level and triumphing at this level against a pretty crazy, quirky opponent.
Yeah. Congrats to Alexei. You know, tour victories are tough. You know, they're not easy to come by, and a lot of really good players don't, get to experience that. So it's always good to get it done early. Take that monkey off your back kind of thing. It's like, okay, I've got my first title, and then, the second is much, much easier than the first. I was working with Novak, and they were good friends with the Novak's team and the agent, and they said the work that Craig does would have benefited Alexei, and we ended up working together. For Alexei, it's he's tall, he's powerful, but he's it's a maturity. We kind of see these guys like Alexei, and the first time I saw him actually was at the French Open, winning the Junior French Open. So I was, they're covering the tournament, and we got an Aussie in the final juniors. I go out there and I'm like, wow, this kid can play.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw him. But we have this idea that professional tennis players have got it all together. They're really, really good at everything, and they're not.
Really?
Now, they're really, really good at accelerating a racket head through a tennis ball. They've got that figured out better than the rest of us. They can get that thing motoring. They can swing hard. They can do it with great rhythm, with great timing. They can make that ball dance. They're incredible at that. Also, they're really, really good at movement on a tennis court. They're really good at acceleration. They're really good at stopping and going back. So the speed of foot and the speed of racket are exceptional. We also naturally assume that their strategy is exceptional, that their understanding of their own game is exceptional, and quite often it's not. Quite often, you see these players that have a professional speed around the court, but sometimes, a junior or a collegiate understanding of strategy. There's different maturity levels with different elements of the pie that put the complete player together. So, Alexei was young, and a lot of it was, for him, it was about making things simple. What worked really well with us is that, like a lot of younger players, especially for him because his game is so powerful, is that he would go onto the court with a perspective that this match was much more about him than anybody else that was out there. And with my coaching, it was much more about Alexei. How many, this is the story I often start with. I said, think back to your last 12 months of tennis. How many times have you walked off the court and said, I was amazing today. Forehand was there, backhand was money. I served really well. I was calm. I was confident. There was no nerves. How many times? And they always say one or two. Sometimes 0, but 1 or 2. And I said, well, if you played 50 matches last year, you're just telling me your A game turned up twice in the year. And I said, that's normal. I go, your job is not to go out there and play great tennis. Your job is to go out there and make the opponent play bad. That's your job. Your job is to not hit winners. Your job is to force errors. So it was, with Alexei, what worked early was to develop the right paradigm of our sport so that when he had decisions to make on a court, is this a time on defense out wide that I rip cross court and go for a spectacular winner, or do I put this ball in play in a position that's a little bit difficult for my opponent and keep the rally going? So I gave a lot of my input into opponent analysis. And he did great with that. Like, this is where you have to play this guy. Like a lot of Spanish guys like to play back, like to hit backhands. He beat Munar, Jamie Munar at the Aussie Open a year ago. And, against a lot of these guys, it's not, the strategy's pretty simple, is that you want to attack their forehand, you want to attack it out wide, you want to pull them out wide of the forehand. If you do go to the backhand, it's only to open up the forehand corner. And Alexei had a maturity to go out onto the court and execute and believe in it and run it. And it started at the US Open where he made a third round. Then we went to the Australian Open and he made a third round. And, he was all in. He really believed in the patterns of play that were correct for him and also the right patterns of play against each opponent. So he's going to get better and better. He's 6'5", 6'6", moves like a gazelle, serves huge, really good forehand, backhand solid. As his evolution goes, over time, he's going to be putting a few more balls in the court. He's going to be chasing the spectacular less, and he's going to make opponents feel like they're trying to run downhill away from an avalanche, and it's just a tough gig to do. So he's going to put more of those balls in play.
Great imagery. I see the journalist and the writer coming out with the German Grizzly and with the gazelle and the avalanche. Well done. Hey, I'll have a couple of compare and contrast situations. Speaking of tall Australians with big serves, tell us how you would work with a Nick Kyrgios, who I know he catches a lot of hell for his work ethic is sometimes up and down, but he's a remarkably powerful guy, and I think nobody really wants to see his name in their quarter in a large tournament. The guy's a big match player. Tell us how you would approach a player like that, and then we'll get into a couple huge names that you've worked with, like Berrettini and Djokovic also.
Yeah, I think with Nick, it's, the first thing you do is just, go to the court, get his rackets, take him out into the parking lot, put him in the car, lock the car, take the other car and head to the mountains for a long weekend. And just you and him and a fire and a river and just get real, like he's got to trust you. I think, I just get this sense that, Nick doesn't really, maybe doesn't want to or doesn't really want to, the belief in people being a mentor for him. And, he's got such a really fun, free spirit that sometimes, like all kids and all people and all of us gets sidetracked and, chairs are thrown on a court in Rome and there's, the toys are coming out of the pram. But I think, if it was a serious deal, it's like Craig, you and Nick, the very first thing would involve nothing about tennis. It would involve connecting with him and him developing trust in you. That would be number one. And so you got to do some team building. You got to bond with the guy. And so that would be the first thing. It wouldn't have anything to do with tennis. Then you've got to get to a stage where you're telling him information and he's going to do it in a match. That's a big deal because, Nick's got an amazing game. I was on center court at Wimbledon when he defeated Rafa. And I hadn't really seen him play. He hadn't been on my radar. And, really early in that match, Rafa hits this heavy kind of slider, but kick and up to Nick in the ad court. And Nick just kind of leant on it with a really short backswing and just went pop and just hit a cross court for a winner. And so I'm like, hang on, if this kid can take Rafa's biggest strength and knock it cross court for a winner with a stroke that's about that long, this kid's got a real chance. And he won that match. I think at some stage, let's just say, for example, at some stage, Nick kind of looks at his career and says, I've got a few good years left in me. What if I really, really, dedicated myself to this and a little bit better with the fitness, and I got a coach to help me with strategy, and I got a psychologist to help me control my emotions out there on the court. I think Nick would be an amazing person to work with. I really do, because I think he's extremely grateful of those around him. You see what he's done with the bushfires that happened in Australia, and now with COVID. Away from the court, he does an amazing job. He just gets a little crazy out there on the court, but is he good for the game? I think he's great for the game.
Fantastic.
Does he wander down a road that you don't really want him on? Sometimes.
So, Nick, would you like to go spend some time with Craig O in Aubrey, New South Wales, on the farm? Would you go do that?
The farm, mate. That was entirely too much information. You call yourself a journalist, Craig. Piss off. Next question, mate.
Well, there you go. Well, I tried to help you, Craig, but I guess Nick, he's thinking about it, maybe, right?
Let him sleep on it.
Good. I like that.
But I'm sure Rafa would like to go, work with Craig O'Shaughnessy, wouldn't you?
Well, first of all, I do not want O'Shaughnessy to work with Kyrgios. No, that's going to be. It's not going to be good for me. No, I don't. Right. No. I'm not part of this plan.
No.
That's good. I like it.
Oh yeah.
What I like about Rafa in his interviews, he goes, instead of saying surface, he goes, so fresh. The fresh is not very good for me. It's like, oh my goodness.
Surface.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, let's get to a couple of the massive names you've worked with. I enjoyed seeing your work with Berrettini when he got to the semifinals of the U.S. Open, and you've held aloft more than one Grand Slam trophy on the team of Novak Djokovic. Tell us a little bit about the differences in these two guys. Granted, it's slightly different body types, certainly different weapons that they come at you with, and maybe you can compare and contrast those two.
Yeah. Matteo, just the little backstory there is I initially got involved with the Italian Tennis Federation. So I started going over to Italy twice a year. I would go all around the country to their high-performance junior academies. I would do a presentation in the morning. I'd get on court with the coaches in the afternoon. And really, we built a really good rapport. And it was funny, you kind of got this image or this idea. It's like the Italians, time is just a suggestion. There's a few of these talks that I did around the country. We're supposed to start at 9 in the morning, and I'm in Naples, and Naples, the traffic it could be the worst in the world. It could be India and Indonesia combined. It's so crazy. And it's 9 o'clock, and we're at this. It's an Olympic sport, and it's very much tied to the Olympic movement in Italy. So we're at this big Olympic headquarters in Naples, in Napoli, and 9 o'clock rolls around, and it's 9:05. I'm starting in minus 5 minutes, and they're like, the building's still locked. We're waiting for the. So then it's like 9:30, and the building gets unlocked, and I'm like, okay, I got to get in and get prepared. We have a coffee first. So we walk 5 minutes, and we have an espresso, and we have another espresso. We go back, and then it's 10 o'clock, and it's just that kind of. That kind of thing is very normal in Italy. They're just fine with it. Yeah. They exist that way. When you think some of that kind of freedom to do things whenever and wherever would kind of wash through Italian tennis, it's the complete opposite. They are so insanely organized. They have manual after manual after manual after manual. Their entire country, or every coach knows every other coach. Every coach is wearing the same outfit. Every coach is bought in. to what they're doing. And essentially, several years ago, they went and said, okay, we want to find the leader in player movement, the leader in player strategy, the leader in player technique. They don't have to be Italian. In fact, we don't care who they are. But we're going to go find these people all around the world, and they're going to be our consultants. And I remember the gentleman, Michelangelo Della is his name. And, Michelangelo is who I deal with, and he's the head of it all, and he's the mastermind of everything over there. He puts all of this together. And, we're at a conference, and he's introducing me, and I can tell a little bit in Italian, but I'm also getting told, and he's like, he goes, basically saying, whatever this guy says, we're all in. We're all in. The entire country, every coach, every player, every junior, we'd already helped Matteo, move up into the top 50 at the time. And, just the total commitment to doing it the right way. Italian tennis decided to go, we're going to be as professional with our outlook and with our training, and we're going to get the best in the world to take care of all of these elements. So, you kind of look back and you look at it now and say, okay, you've got Berrettini, you've got Sonego coming up, you've got Sinner, you've got Musetti, you've got this long list. You've got they've taken the ATP finals from London to Torino. They've got the next gen. They've got Gaudenzi, who's Italian, as the head of the ATP. They've got another Italian that's high up in the ATP. I mean, all of a sudden, it's the Italians are taking over.
Yeah.
If you go back, this was a methodical way of running Italian tennis, and they are so on point with the way that they run it. They're the world leaders right now. France has always done an amazing job, but I always make fun of the French. The French are incredibly good at putting the most amount of players into the main draw of a Grand Slam. They're great. But they fail at putting players into the second week of a Grand Slam. They put a lot in the first, but they don't put a lot in the second. And it's interesting when I go and look at, I've got all the ATP stats because I write the stories, and I go and look at the differences between forehands and backhands, because the French love their backhands. I mean, Gasquet and you name it.
Monfils. Yeah.
I go and look at the French, and I look at forehand winners. And, I've got this long list through the season. I put the filter in, maybe you've got to play 10 matches. And I go, who's hit the least amount of forehand winners? The bottom 7 guys are all French.
Wow.
Who has the least miles per hour on a forehand? The bottom 7 guys are all French. Who plays the longest points? The top, they're all French. As a country, they are really good at kind of organizing tennis, and they're really good at backhands, but they're not. They've got this huge hole, and it's the forehand. It's the forehand. And until they figure that out, that the forehand matters more than the backhand, they're not going to have a French Open champion. They're not going to have a French champion at a Grand Slam for quite some time. Let's get back.
I think it all started with Francois Dur, the finger, on the backhand, didn't it? Didn't it start with
funky grip?
Yeah, remember that? She had the finger. That's where it started back in the 60s with Frankie Dur.
She had a forehand grip on the one-handed backhand.
She did.
Crazy.
That's it. That's
absolutely crazy.
So Berrettini, that started with the head of men's tennis is a wonderful gentleman named Umberto Riana. And Umberto fully embraced what we're doing and here to help. And he basically said, Craig, we see what you're doing with Novak. Can you just do something simple for us? Mm-hmm. Like get every stat that you've got of Novak and put it on a piece of paper, and next to it, put every stat of Matteo. And Matteo's outside the top 50 at the time. So I just put these 2 lines of stats, and I organized them serving and returning. And the information, the initial information just leapt off it. So you look at everything that Matteo's doing serving was basically in the same ballpark as Novak, and sometimes better. Now, Novak's, 1 in the world, and Matteo, I think, was maybe 55. But Matteo's serve metrics at the time were off the charts. You could already see it. This guy's going to be a serving machine. And then we looked at the returning, and they were what they were. You've got the ATP average, and then you've got some guys, and then you've got Matteo. So it was really simple. I sat down. I remember sitting down with Umberto at the Next Gen Championships in Milan, and go, for the next 6 months of training, this guy doesn't even need to hit a serve.
It's all about returning.
It's all about the return. Yeah. His returning is too low, and they embraced that training. I sent through game plans. They didn't really, really have a lot of information about opponents, so I delivered that information, and all of a sudden, good things happen, and a little lucky here, and a great win there, and the 7-5 in the fifth against Monfils on Arthur Ashe was one of the greatest matches I've ever been a part of. Having set points against Rafa, in that first set. I mean, if he can convert one of those set points in the first set, he can win that match. We know matches can swing on 1 point, and we know that Rafa's not gone after one set.
Of course.
But the wings and the crowd and the energy and the bombing, he would have had a real chance to win that match. But it got a lot tougher after that. So Matteo very much embraces what I do, and his coach Vincenzo. I send through game plans. I'm doing it all the time. I'm doing it this week. And they're just, first of all, it's not even about coaching with the Italians. I want to say trust, but it's not even about trust. It's just about getting along. It's like, I like that guy. Vincenzo and Umberto, they're two really good guys. And you want to do extra for those good guys. You want to stay up later at night doing a game plan. You want to get to the court earlier. You want to do whatever, if they ask for something, you want to give them that and more. The whole of the Italian Federation have treated me so well, and we're having, outstanding success with it. And it really starts there. And I would say you could really put a significant portion of Matteo's success into the relationship of Vincenzo and Umberto and myself, because we get along so well. It's just we're giving Matteo the best possibility that he could have to succeed.
Excellent. Let's compare and contrast that with Novak and your years of work with him.
Yeah, Novak's a different cat in a lot of different ways. My relationship with Novak was always amazing. Right from the beginning was, essentially this is the way it started. Is that we sat down at the Australian Open in 2017, and you learn things along the way. And I was ready for this meeting, and I said, Novak, how can I help you best? That was one of the best things that I did to start with. Is like, how can I help you? And he said, Craig, I need three things. Three things stand out to me. The first is I have a good idea of how I play and what I do on the court and what helps me succeed. But he goes, I bet there's some things that I don't get, and I bet there's some things that I think are good that probably aren't.
Wow. So
I want you to do a complete analysis of my game. I want to know everything about my game. I want to know, is it better to hit a forehand? Is it better to hit a backhand? Is it better to do this? Is it better to do that? We're not having any kind of preconceived notion of who I am as a player. Look at the way I play, look at the numbers, and let's improve Novak. And always, I remember just going off, and I'll get back to those other two, but I remember being in London, for the tour finals in the end of 2019, the end of 2019. And he comes up to me on the side of the court. This is during practice. He goes, Craig, I've got to improve my returns next year. And I'm like, what? What is he talking about? And he's like, yeah, I want you to look at my footwork. I want you to look at my footwork and my returns. Am I doing it right? I don't know if I'm stepping with my left or my right. I don't know if I'm split. Surely I can do it better. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is the world's best returner.
better than Jimmy and Agassi. He's probably the greatest of all time. And here he is coming to you for basic footwork stuff on the return. Interesting.
Yeah. So I remember doing, the next week I did a video and sent it through to him in slow motion, zooming in. I'm like, here's your footwork here's 30 first serves coming at you. I basically cut him off at the waist, so we only see his feet, and you just see his movement. Again, in 30 in the juice court, 30 in the ad court against first serves, and then the same with second serves. And so he knew exactly what that movement was in both sides. And yes, it's different with first and second serve returns, but, he just wanted to get better. He's always wanting to get better. He doesn't see at all that, he's tapping out. So that was number one. Number two was, he said, I want a game plan against every opponent I play. I want to go on that court knowing everything that I can possibly know about that player. I don't want any surprises. There'll be opponents that that I have never played before. Murray and Vida, his full-time coach. It's like, you guys work together and deliver the information to me. But I need that. So for 3 years, I did a game plan for every single match. Sometimes, sitting here in this office here in Austin, I'd spend 7 or 8 hours, going through it, going through a game plan. I'd spend a whole day, just going, well, what if and what if and what if. And it's a combination of making 2 to 3 minute videos. And it's a combination of looking at serve patterns. It's a combination of looking at break points. It's a combination of where does the other guy break down? And, I'm learning my craft as well. But, the last thing that I'm going to do is put through and deliver or email a half-assed game plan to the number one player in the world.
No way.
I mean, that just can't happen.
Yeah.
At times I probably went over on what I did, but he got everything, and so that was a big one. Especially players he hadn't played before, and especially players that, this guy's playing well all of a sudden. Like Goffin this week wins, and he hasn't won for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What's Goffin doing better? Maybe it's just the opponents he's playing that like to go back in cross court. Maybe it's the court surface is slow, and he's got more time. You don't know until you research.
Do you think?
And then the last of the three, the first is him, the second is the game plans, and the last was, he goes, there's these other couple of guys that give me that give me a bit of trouble around the end of the tournament. So let's spend a little bit more time on these other couple of guys over here.
Clearly one of them is Stan Wawrinka.
Well, Stan was one. The big was, we did extra work on Stan, but Roger and Rafa.
For sure.
And I think one of the, there was a few game plans that went out there, and I could close my eyes and I could just, what's the score? I'll tell you where he's going to serve. I'll tell you where Rafa's going to hit the ball back. I'll tell you where Rafa's going to make the error on this point based on the score. The 2019 Australian Open final was Novak just dialed into the game plan. But a lot of that came from in the semifinal, he beat Lucas Pouille. There's a Frenchman that made a semifinal. But Novak, this is the thing that was interesting, is that Novak had never played him. So obviously Novak's he's all in with the game plan. But when he's never played somebody, he can't, there's no like, I remember playing him a couple of years ago, I remember doing this. There's a little bit of freelance there. When he's never played a guy, he doesn't know, there's no freelance.
None.
So Pouille's a guy that, is very simple to play against. Very, very simple game plan. So Novak went out and ran that game plan perfectly and went right through Pouille. So when I give the game plan for Rafa, he's just been to the fountain and it worked exquisitely. So to go back to the fountain for the final and just dial in everything that needed to be dialed in, playing somebody he'd never played in the semifinal helped him absorb better the game plan for the final.
And he got used to following that playbook, followed a different playbook, but the act of following your playbook clearly helped him rout Rafa in that final a couple of years ago.
There was a lot of people thinking that that was going to be a one-sided match, or that Rafa had a real good chance, or Rafa was the favorite. I did a lot of I did a lot of work on the game plan. I'm like, people were coming up to me before and it's like, wow, are you scared of Rafa? Is it going to be 5 sets? Novak's not going to win. And I'm like, Novak in straight.
Wow.
Novak.
You nailed it, man.
I just saw it coming. Yeah. Now, and then you go back to, it was basically because of the homework. Matches like that are won and lost before the first ball's hit. They really, really are. And we did our homework better. But, what was interesting is that Goran came out at Roland Garros and said, well, Novak's going to go right through Rafa. And then I watched, I'm not working with Novak this year. And
opposite.
The game plan wasn't there. The right patterns weren't there. You're playing Rafa. There was that. Sometimes you can get it right, and sometimes you can be horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And,
so it's not just the surface. It was the game plan was all wrong, and after a fairly close first 20 minutes, it was the opposite of what Goran predicted.
Yeah. I think it was. Rafa's a different animal on clay to start with. Yeah. Just the fact that you think you've got, you are never ever a favorite against Rafa on clay, and you are especially never a favorite at Roland Garros, and at another especially on court Philippe Chatrier, and at another level in a final.
In a final, yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Different level.
It's delusional if you think you're the favorite there. It's not going to happen.
Do you think Novak gets it at the end of the day? Will he go down as the greatest player? You think he gets the most slams?
Well, it's a great question.
I know. I'm a good question to ask.
Sure is.
I'm more, when you think, I'm going to answer this in 2 parts.
Okay.
John McEnroe. Let's go back to the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. John as a commentator, Bjorn Borg is the greatest player I've ever seen. Bjorn Borg is the best. There will never be anyone better than Bjorn Borg. And then Pete Sampras comes along. I think Pete's the best. He's the best. And then Leighton Hewitt, coming out of John's mouth. I think Leighton Hewitt's the best I've ever seen. He's the best player. And then Roger comes along. He's the best player. It's just like, if we're sitting here in peak Roger, like 2005 to 2008 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
Roger Federer was untouchable. And then Rafa goes through periods where he's untouchable. And then Novak's going through it. But Novak's going through it now. And our memories remember now better than they remember Roger, 15 years ago. So it just so happens that if Novak's got, what has he got now, 18?
Yep.
I don't think, our idea of the greatest ever, they've played each other so much. You give each other, Novak leads the head-to-head against both guys. It's pretty slim, but he's still leading it. He may end up with more Grand Slams, but, we could have another 20 or 30 metrics that 18 of them go to Rafa and the rest go, I'm much more about, holy cow, we've got 3 guys all elevating each other, and we've got 3 guys that are all deserving. And I think we're doing a disservice to them and our sport to even try and, because there's a lot of hate. You go to Twitter.
Oh, man.
And there's Novak's fans love him so much. They are so rabid that they will crawl all over the carcass of Rafa and Roger to elevate their man. And one part of me says, if you got fans that love you that much, that's phenomenal. But there's another part that I'd like to see from them, and also Rafa's fans and Roger's fans, is that let's applaud the other guys. Let's at least understand that Novak is not going to be reaching the heights he's going to reach, and maybe end up with the most slams ever and the most weeks at number 1, and he's already won every Masters twice, and the other guys haven't done that. There's a lot there, but let's give some credit and to the other 2 guys and say, without them, Novak is not pushing himself as much as he is today. So I'm much more of a fan. I wrote an article on the ATP website that we've got three. We've got three of the best, and that's my view.
Yeah. Craig, great perspective. I'd love to get to Warren Pretorius's comment and question about how you're using tennis analytics and working with that company. Maybe you can start by telling us how what the process is in your mind about tagging. And basically, I think this is the perfect time for that question, because you were talking about he did the homework, and you're referring to Novak when he routed Rafa a couple years ago at the Oz Open. Tell us a little bit about what is this homework and your process of coming up with it. So talk about tennis analytics and tagging.
Well, Warren was heavily involved, and still is, with Dartfish. Yep. He's the tennis guy with Dartfish. And I got involved with Dartfish early on because they have the match tagging. So, I've known Warren for a number of years through there. Typically Warren and I get a good bottle of tequila and, find a nice quiet place and just sip a little bit and just throw a lot of ideas back and forth. And, Warren's business is tagging matches, and he does it for a lot of colleges. He does it for tournaments. He does it for individuals, and he's the best in the world at what he does. And I've even, I used to do all my own tagging, and now all the matches that I have tagged, I give to Warren. I give my own tagging panel. There's certain things that I want. I have ABCD on the back of the court. I have 8 locations in the service boxes. I want to know every single thing that happens in the first 4 shots. That's just what my kind of research does. So, Warren and I have teamed up together on 2 courses. One is Game Plan, which is all the data from 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, college and pro. And the other is 1 million points of college tennis, which is, all of Warren's data. But, I think, when you look kind of at the global tennis and what's happening, there's a layer that sits under that that's kind of like the engine. And that's, Warren is right there in the middle of that engine. Yeah. And he's connected with the USTA, and he's connected with Tennis Canada, and he's connected with top pros. He used to even work with Novak before I did, doing all the analytics for Novak. So, these guys like Warren, they're inventing stuff. I mean, Warren and I get on calls all the time, and we're like, well, can we chart this, and can we do that, and can we do all these brand new analytics? But essentially, what we're after is figuring out what matters most to winning. That's all that matters. So, we're looking for the best analytics to extract out of the match to then explain why a player won and lost the match. So the process goes, it starts with the numbers. Numbers and the percentages are the language of tennis, and they're the language of winning in tennis. So Warren and I have created this product that has a match intelligence report, and it's 10 pages. And it's, it has a summary page on the start, and then it drills down. So the first thing that we want to know is, what was the rally length in 0 through 4, 5 through 8, and 9+? And the number one stat in tennis is who wins 0 through 4. Who wins it? Whoever wins that's going to win the match. By far, it's always the first stat that I go and look at. So Warren and I, more than any other people that I know in the industry, and there's a lot of other people doing it, and we're making this analytics side more known, and more people are getting involved, which is great. Yeah. But it's the innovation that's the key, and innovation happens sitting in a hot tub while it's snowing, having a tequila and throwing some ideas around, and you're sore from skiing all day and having a great time, and ideas come together. And Warren and I are very, very good friends, and we've got two courses together and working on more. But it's the backstage innovation. The amount of hours that the guy puts in behind, that the people never see, is a joke. It's just ridiculous. So in a lot of ways, I've been kind of on the front side, with the Wimbledon channel and pioneering that, but equally so, Warren's been been doing the exact same thing, and you know, coming up with new analytics and bringing it to people. So the new thing we're putting together is called Match IQ, and essentially it's what I was doing with Novak. It's delivering that process to every match, every adult, every 3-0, every 16 and under, every 12 and under, all over the world. So it's really, really simple. You play a match, you have your camcorder up there, however you want to get it recorded. You go to, Warren's got a link, you upload it to Warren, it instantly gets tagged. Well, excuse me, not instantly, it gets tagged.
Yeah.
And then we have a match intelligence report and we have the video online.
Brilliant.
So the video is the real key. The video is the winner because then you can see what's going on. But the match analytics create red flags and green flags. So, well, that's a really good number. Let's go investigate. Wow, that number is not so good. We need to find out why. And so you look at the match intelligence report first, then you go and watch the video. So, for example, we've got a 10-year-old boy in Little Rock, Arkansas, that's probably sent through 30 matches already. 30 matches. And he's doing some things better, some patterns of play better than the pros are. Really? I'm teaching guys around 100 in the world to do what this kid's automatically wanting to do on the court. So I'm showing this young boy, I'm making the highlight videos. Here's what you're doing well. We want more of these. Here's what you're not doing well. And to his coach, here's some technique work that we need done. And then, you know, the dad's like, well, he wants to go to the net all the time. We're like, let him. Because essentially the way you look at it is, it takes a few, you know, the net's a good example. It takes a few years to get good at the net. Let's say 4 years. Yeah. So he's starting at 10, and we're promoting the daylights out of it. Yeah. So when he turns 14, if we go to a 14 under tournament, he's going to look pretty good going to the net. But a lot of 14-year-old kids are just starting that.
They have no experience, and he's got 4.
They're not going to look until they're 18.
Tremendous.
So we don't know all that. It's kind of Warren in a back room looking at the analytics of junior tennis, and does going to the network in the pro game? Yes. Yeah. Does going to the network in 10 and unders? Yes. Should we be promoting it and working on it? Absolutely. And it's that kind of process that we're innovating and developing.
Well done. That's a long-range look at it, and I love the perspective. A great answer on tennis analytics. You've effectively answered one of my next questions, and one from a recent guest, Vasily Guryanov, who's a remarkable coach himself. He was asking how you're scaling this to developing players, and if I might add, even club players, because we see sometimes that a lot of the stats between, let's say, 0 and 4 shots in a rally, who's winning that is winning a club level 3.5 match as well.
Yeah. Yep. Have you guys, you're familiar with Tennis Congress? PJ Simmons.
Of course, yeah.
Runs that. So Warren and I we videoed 14 sets out there. So we had all these players. Well, I think we had, what was that, maybe?
A couple of 5-0s that one Friday night, I think.
It was 16 sets, something like that. So we get to these bunch of sets, and there were some 5-0s, some 4-5s, some 4-0s, some 4-0s that were really 3-5s, but they were the normal run-of-the-mill. So we talk before we go and video them, and they're like, well, what do you guys expect? It's like, we'll see some long rallies. I'm very consistent. I like to do this. I like to do that. I go, well, which will be the rally length that will happen the most, which is the most common rally length. And we'll probably play more 4-shot rallies than anything else. So we video them, then we come back and we look at the data, and the number one, the most common rally was a rally of 1. Then it was a rally of 2. Then it was a rally of 0, which is double fault. Yeah, and then it was a rally of 3. So the top 4 rallies were 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then we asked them, we said, what are you doing at your club in practice to get better? And they're like, well, we're back there, we're hitting 100 balls cross court. And I'm like, stop. None of these points in the match are being won or even affected by that old school training. You need serve work, you need return work, you need serve +1 and return +1 effectively for a year. If you in practice only worked on serves, returns, and the next 2 shots, and played points and caught the ball after 4 shots and did it again, you will improve and win far more matches than going out there and hitting 100 balls cross court the old school way. So, that's the technology, what Warren and I are delivering is the video and the analytics that will prove that to those players.
Craig, good stuff. The natural segue will be to a segment we used to do about a year ago. It's called Coaches Courtside, making fun of other coaches, and we hopefully will get to that. But I do want to get to a great question from our Wednesday night show. We call it Tennis Shorts, and one of the questions was, and Rick Eckloff, who's a frequent listener to our show, what do you think is better, to help somebody up the strengths and to work heavily on that, or to make the weaknesses a bit stronger?
Yeah, good point. So the way I look at it is this way. It's like a chain. You've got a strong link, you've got a weak link, and you've got a broken link. So when you look at a match, if there is something in the match that is causing you to lose the match, which is a broken link, you stop what you're doing with your training and you put all of your attention on that broken link. And at least remove it out of the broken column and put it into the weaker column. So that's number one. To understand it's not just strengths and weaknesses, it's a better analogy with the 3 different types of links that you have.
Very good. 3 rather than 2, yeah. Yeah,
3 rather than 2. The next thing to understand is the best players in the world, everybody has weaknesses. Rafa's got them, Novak's got them, Roger's got them, you've got them, I've got them. We've all got weaknesses. So the fact that to try and say we don't have them, we've got them. Just admit we've got them, and you'll actually do better. So the next thing is you can hide them. You don't need to let your opponent see them.
Yeah.
You can hide those weaknesses. In general, to kind of boil down, I know where you're headed with the question, and I am a firm believer in developing the strengths and making them stronger and making them even better rather than trying to bring up those weaknesses. And one last part, so essentially, let's make the strengths stronger. But, and this is the beauty of tennis, is that, you kind of got 2 things you're weighing up, and they can be very conflicting. They can be like, this is the opposite of that, but they're both true and they're both right. So in one breath, I'm saying, yes, let's make the strengths stronger. Absolutely, I love that. On the other side, it's certainly about looking and figuring out why you're losing the match. And, if you can make that weakness just a little bit better, just bring it up to neutral. Just bring it up to neutral. Hide it a little bit, bring it up to neutral, kind of admit it's there. But if you can do that, then, that also helps as well. It's like, having the opponent go, well, I could always go over there. And a classic example is my backhand. A classic example. So I grew up on grass, slice, 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 slice. I go to college, slice, 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 slice. A year ago, I bought a ball machine to help coach this younger kid. And then I'm like, I'm going to work on my backhand. And I get out there and I video myself, and I've got a drone, I've got a camera, and I put it on the internet, and I got 111 replies on how to improve my backhand. It's never felt better, ever in my life. I'm getting it back. I'm getting it around here. I'm hitting it. I have no problem going after my backhand, especially in a big moment, whereas I never would. So you can always improve something. And that's I haven't improved any other part of my game, but I don't only have to slice on my backhand now. I can actually come over and feel confident with it.
Well done. He didn't even move to France.
He didn't have to.
He didn't move to France. You could practice your backhand in France. You should have moved to France, and you had a better backhand.
Double-edged sword. If I fall in love with it, then I'm done.
Then you've lost the forehand. And
yeah, I'm done.
That's great. Great. Well, any other questions from the crowd there?
There was a really good one right there. Let me go back here just real quick. I thought there was a really fascinating question that. Let me go. Okay, hold on. I had one more really. Here it is. I know where it was.
Adrian, as you're doing that, I just want to one other thing from that last question.
Yes, Craig.
That I remember I said there's kind of the two parts. Yes, we want to make strength stronger, but the other part of it is this: is that let's say you play a match, and you played 100 points in the match, and I tag it, and I put in order, and I put a number 1 in the corner. This was, in my evaluation, this was the best point you played in the match. And here's the second best, and here's the third. And it goes your best to your worst, 1 to 100. 1 to 100. 100 being this is the worst. This is the worst point.
Yeah.
So here's another way to improve very quickly, is that make your 80th worst point your 100th.
Interesting.
So you don't improve your best 20, keep them the same. Your best 20 points are probably good enough.
Yeah.
But your worst 20 are what's causing you to lose. So at number 80, let's just say it's a weak backhand cross court, but the last 20 are all errors, all just bad errors in the net. So if you can raise your the level of your worst tennis, that goes a long way to becoming a better tennis player quickly.
Excellent answer.
So here's the question.
That's a good way to think of it.
This is also
you found it good.
How does Craig think that analytics will change the game?
It already has.
It already has.
It has.
Does it? Because
super simple.
Go ahead. Because I want to follow up on this.
Yeah. I graduated from Baylor somehow in 1991.
Yeah.
1991 was also the exact same year that the first official tennis statistics were recorded. Official. So before 1991, we guess, it's better to do this, it's better to do that. You just have to guess. And from 1991 to about 2002, just primitive data, super primitive data. So, the analytics are going to change our sport, because we were, prior to that, and even lately, we're just guessing about what's really happening in a match. So the old way is, let's go to the practice court, practice, 100 balls cross court. Mm-hmm. Then let's go to the match and see if I can win. Essentially what I've done is this. I've changed it. I go, when I ran an academy in Australia, I remember making this mistake. I had a kid in my academy that this was 1995, and it was the internet starting to take up, and he's like, Craig, do you want me to make your website? I'm like, I don't even really know what a website is, but yeah, sure, go ahead. And we said, well, who do we want to target? And I said, all these Asian countries like Japan and Korea and Indonesia, they all go over to Bollettieri's, they'll go to the States. Let's bring them to Albury. Let's bring them to the country. So, we put it in different languages, and all of a sudden I had these people from Asia coming down for training. But what I would do, I made a big mistake, was they'd arrive and, arrive on the weekend, and let's say they're there for a week. So Monday, feed them a bunch of balls. Let's work on your forehand. Tuesday, let's work on your backhand. Wednesday, let's work on your serve. Thursday, let's work on your approach. And Friday, why don't you play a set? And I watch them play a set. They've got no idea about the strategy based on the point score. They've got no idea about putting the opponent first and figuring out a game plan. They've got no idea about any pattern whatsoever. And I quickly realized I just completely wasted 4 days. 4 days of tennis. And I kind of came up with the story. How you hit the ball matters. Where you hit it matters more. So what I do now when I first start with somebody that said, Craig, we want to do some work with you. I said, I need video of a match. So now I always start with a match, always start with that, and get the analytics out of that and go, well, this is where you're weak and this is where you're strong. And that is going to drive what happens on the practice court.
Because that was kind of where I was going with my follow-up question. How much analytics can you give, like, to a Novak Djokovic? Can you feed his mind with all this analytical stuff when he goes out and plays, Rafa? Will he process this? Or do you have to just give him, like, 2 or 3 things to kind of work on?
Yeah. So essentially, which goes back to another conversation I had with Novak, is that, it was, the back of the court's cut up in A, B, C, D. And I'm showing him these Hawkeye heat maps that have the red dot over slightly in the ad court, which is position C. And I said, Novak, and I had one of him, of one of his matches. I said, this is where you're spending most of your time in a match. And he's just even fascinated that we know that that's where he's at. He's like, well, maybe, I thought I was more middle, but obviously I'm not. And then I said, Novak, you've got the world's best backhand, and this is backhand territory, but I want you to run around balls in this area and hit forehands. Mm-hmm. And he's like, tell me why. So here's the analytics. I had 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, London Tour finals. You got Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray, Ferrer, and Berdych. Played all of those years. And I've got all their forehand and backhand winners. So essentially on tour, it's around 70% forehand winners, 30% backhand winners. Those 6 guys were running on average 75% forehand winners at the London Tour finals. So Novak was at 72%. So that means his backhand accounts for 28% of his ground stroke winners. I said, Novak, do you want to be swimming in the 72% pool, or do you want to be swimming in the 28% pool? And immediately goes, Craig, this is exactly what I want from you. In a match, I've got to make a decision between 2 things quite often. Is this ball going cross court? Is it going line? Is this ball a forehand? Is this ball a backhand? Do I go to the net behind this ball, or do I stay back? So he goes, you're telling me that if I have the opportunity in this part of the court to run around, I'm going to win way more points if I can run around and hit a forehand. I'm like, absolutely. And that's settled. It's done. There's no opinion. And then, the next question is, well, Craig, should I go to the net more? I'm like, of course you should. Absolutely. You're winning 75% at net. Net's a great part for you. And then the next, at the net, exactly. Then the next question, again, this guy's already won 11 slams. He's already been number 1 in the world, and 2015, he went 82-6. He's already not a bad player. But, he goes, should I go to the net? I'm like, yes. He goes, well, what's the best way to go? I go, forehand approach to the backhand. And then when I get a first volley, where do I hit it? I'm like, if you can't, you go back behind. Unless you can put a first volley away, which quite often is difficult. If you can put it away, go open court all you want. But 9 times out of 10, first volleys go back behind, and then you're going to sit on an overhead. And time again in matches, I would send him video all the time of him hitting an approach to the backhand, him hitting a first volley back behind the backhand, and him dining on an overhead. I'm like, here it is again, here it is again, here it is again. It was match point against Del Potro, 2018 US Open. That was the play. And, sometimes Novak doesn't hit overheads well at all. But he's not expecting them. But that year, we had the game plan of going to the net, and the end game of going to the net was to hit an overhead. And he did great with overheads. And I didn't tell him, get your racket back earlier, or get side on, or take little. I didn't say any of that. I said, you're going to approach to the backhand, you're going to do the first volley, and the next shot you're going to hit an overhead. So he's expecting it. He's waiting on it. He knows it's coming, and his overhead was really, really good that tournament.
That is great.
Good stuff there.
Yeah, let's go to a last question from a.
We've had some great questions.
Yeah,
we're getting people asking a lot of great questions.
Very
online.
Engaged public we've got. It's Craig. Why don't you read it? This is from Vasily up in Chicago, Illinois.
Once again, I think this is an interesting question that he poses. Do players use analytics during equipment selection processing? So would Novak make a racket selection, or maybe, I don't know, shoes, or players kind of combining the two, equipment and analytics?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I remember when it was in December 2018, we had a training camp in Monte Carlo. So I flew over for that, and it was when Andre Agassi came on board and Radek Stepanek came on board. And Andre turned up with 3 huge bags. Brought him out on the court with no idea what's in them. He opens them up, and there's probably 30 rackets. And he, you know, Andre's big thing is he was trying to guide Novak. He's like, here's a lot of here's 16 by 19. Here's all these different string patterns. Here's these different weights of racket. Just the setup. Here's 30 different setups. Andre knew where he wanted to position Novak. And he kind of was like, well, try this, try the ends of the spectrum and bring them in. But, you know, Andre had a really good idea because, you know, that was Andre's deal. It was all about the setup. It was all about, you know, the exact pound and the exact weight and where was the weight. The setup of the racket he was so particular with, and he thought Novak could do better with that. But it wasn't so much that he was trying to find, you know, the discussion wasn't about, you know, we need 4 miles an hour more, or we need to win 2% more from the baseline. It was just, you know, who is Novak as a player? How is he going to construct and organize his tennis? And what is the best racket to make that happen? And when Andre came in, it was, you know, he couldn't have had anyone better, really, that knew the equipment so well. And I remember them going through back and forth and discussions, and I was videoing everything. And so yes and no. It's the analytics help define who Novak is as a player. Yes. He is a short ball hunter. Yes, he goes to the net. Yes, he's serving more to the forehand because the analytics dictate that. Yes, he stays up around the baseline. Yes, he hits more run around forehands. And based on that, the analytics drive that. But based on that, you then go and find the racket that is best suited for all of those tasks that you want to have happen out there.
Does Novak use a racket kind of like off the shelf, basically, or did they kind of doctor it up?
Yeah, he walks into Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah, right. I'll take one of those, 2 of those, 3 of those.
Because I'll have 6 of those up there.
That's right.
Yeah, put him on Craig's MasterCard.
That's it.
I didn't know if he had anything special. Does he string his rackets with any certain string or anything like that?
You can never get a hold of him at night. He's always at the stringer. He loves to string his own rackets.
Yeah, that's right. You can
never get a hold of him.
He's on the machine like AJ. He's probably, you know, is he a pusher or a puller? Do you know?
When he strings, the weaves.
Yeah, there's some great questions there. Should we go third set, or
before we go third set, if we are doing the Seinfeldian comedians and cars,
we got to do that.
If we are doing the coaches courtside, making fun of coaches, Craig O'Shaughnessy, what are some coaching tropes that we can all kind of agree to make fun of these days? What are some funny things that coaches they're just cliches, stuck in the 70s and 80s?
Some cliches.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've got a couple, but a little history is that, you know, I coached a T-bar in Dallas from 2001 to 2010. And the last time I was full-time on court, earning my living on court, running an academy was 2013. So, you know, I made the leap. You know, it's a leap of faith to say I'm out of the academy game. I'm out of the lesson game. Right. I'm out of, I've fed my 50 million balls. I'm done. So that was 2013 was the last year I did that. But in saying that, you know, going back, so if I understand the question correctly, it's like, what are some things that other coaches are doing that we can make fun of a little bit?
These are things that are outmoded, but people are still passionate about these things.
Racket back, bend your knees,
or shot selection, or how about shot tolerance, or, you know, I must suffer, you know, that kind of stuff. Give us some things that are
no pain, no gain,
kind of outmoded.
Yeah, you know what? I think in general, like the old Spanish system was you know, they would talk about suffering a lot. I think, you know, with the data, I mean, a lot of the data I have on the first 4 shots comes from Rafa. I mean, Rafa dominates at a 0-2-4, 5-3, and 9+. The player on tour that does the best, that pushes the percentage the highest, is Rafa in 5-8.
It's so funny because people think of him as a backcourt grinder and not a first strike player, but he's clearly become one.
Oh, he's a first strike king. He's the king of Spain. You know, we used to hear, you know, a lot more about grinding. We used to hear a lot more about consistency. And I think, I've just taken, the Spanish Armada, and I've taken all the cannons and lined them up and just let them all go at once and let the data speak for itself. So I think we're doing better at that. I think as a tennis industry, coaches are saying a lot less of, we used to be watch the ball, any mistake you make, watch the ball. I think we're doing better at that. Get your racket back. An interesting story there is, that used to be, if you missed any shot at all, get your racket back. But I've got video, at that training camp I did with Novak in Monte Carlo. I had one camcorder right behind the court, still on the court, inside the fence, but on a tripod up high.
Up high, okay, so this angle.
Yeah, just looking down, so maybe about 7 feet. So that ran the entire 2-hour practice. I also walked around the court with my iPhone, taking iPhone video, getting in close. Whenever there's a discussion, I was there, recorded everything. Then in the evenings, I would send everyone in the team the highlights of the day. So I've got that entire, that entire few days that we did that training camp, all recorded. And I remember Novak's hitting, and he turns around and he's doing well. Like, it's coming. And Andre's coming over, and Radek says something, and we're having a nice little moment. And I'm right there with my camera. And Novak goes, one thing. He goes, if I can just think of one thing, that is the best for me. And he goes, at the moment, get ready early. He goes, if I get ready early, every other thing is better. Every other thing is a domino effect. And so, and I think there was a discussion like, Radek came over and said, oh, wow, you got balanced on that. And Andre came over and goes, wow, you hit that well. And, maybe I said, great spin. And Novak's like, no.
No, it's this.
One thing. And he goes, get ready early. And it's true. It's true. If we start to overthink. So I think in general, coaching from when I was at T-Bar, I would walk out. I remember being at T-Bar, like, let's say it's 2005. There's really no analytics, very few analytics in tennis. And I remember walking out the back door of T-Bar, and, there's 30 courts total. There's, I think, 16 out the back. And there's probably 14 pros out there. And I remember walking out there, and I look at what the pros were doing. And they're feeding balls to the forehand. And they're watching the player and feeding, and they're not watching where the ball's bouncing. And I talked to them afterwards. I'm like, what are you doing with that player?
Yeah.
It's just like you're hitting balls off a cruise ship, off the edge of a cruise ship. It's just like, yeah, that was a good forehand. That was a good. What's the purpose? Is there a strategy? Is it the technique? Is it where the ball's landing? And so I think, in general, as coaches, but to their defense, that's all we had because we didn't have match metrics. And I think we're doing better at that. Pre-COVID, I did a lot of traveling, and coaching all over the world is improving. So I know what you want out of this segment.
Yeah, you got it, man.
But I'm going the other way. I'm going to be the one guy that goes the other way, because all over the world, I see coaches improving in their craft and their understanding and using these match metrics that I'm putting out there, and the ATP is putting out there, and lots of other, Warren's putting out there, lots of other people. We've now got really good match data, and I think it's being really well absorbed. And certainly, I know what's happening in the Italian Federation and all these towns all over Italy with their high-performance centers, that they live and die by these match metrics. That's what's powering Italian tennis, and I think our sport is doing a good job of embracing it.
What a positive answer, which gets us into the third set, which will be
I'm scared of the third set. What's happening here?
The third set is a blast. Craig Bell has a great time with this one. I know I do too. We wrote a lot of questions. We may not get to all of them, but he's very judicious about. We call it rapid fire, fast hands. No huge need to dig deep in these. This is kind of quick answer, and it really helps the people at home see not just Craig O'Shaughnessy, the #1 strategic coach in the world, but the guy, right? Craig, the guy. So
he's the man. Right. He is the man. First, okay, here we go. Third set, sponsored by Master Systems. Our good buddy Blair Descaray. We'll put a shout in for Blair. You know Blair, don't you, from Master Systems, Craig? Have you met him?
I do.
Yeah, brilliant guy. He's been at a few conferences with us. Yeah.
Very, very good guy. If you need court resurfacing, courts accessories, anything, talk to our good buddy Blair.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Strapping it on right now. Okay. First band you saw in concert. In Excess
in Albury, Australia, in my hometown.
In your town, not Sydney, not Melbourne.
Yeah.
It was 18,000 people at the time, and In Excess came and played.
What year was this?
Yeah,
Kick Tour, 86?
80, probably 81, 82.
Oh, this is like
early.
Shabu Shabba, kind of early, yeah.
Yep.
So if you could hear a band in concert, what band would you like to hear? Because you live in the Austin area, which is considered the music capital of the world, so you've probably seen a lot of bands. Is there somebody you hadn't seen?
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a really good Bruce Springsteen concert again. I saw him in concert. When Born in the USA tour, when he owned the world.
He did.
For Bruce to come back, the energy. You know what Bruce was so good at? I remember I think it was in Melbourne when I saw him. That he would sing these songs, but then he would tell these stories. And these stories were so moving, and they brought life to these songs. And I'm like, I had no idea that somebody could could sing a song and tell a story, and probably me being more impressed with the story than the song. And Bruce did it. So I was really, really impressed with him.
Was that the MCG? Did you see him at the MCG?
I think I did.
Oh, excellent.
That's a great venue, by the way. I love Melbourne. That's my favorite city. Yes,
the best venue in the world.
Right, Carlton Blues. Go Carlton. Sorry about that.
Essendon Bombers.
Oh. Who's your favorite band?
I go Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam.
I love Pearl Jam through the years. I think the lyrics are ridiculous. I think the storytelling there is amazing, and I think the music's just hits home. Pearl Jam's fantastic.
Type of music that you like? Do you like rock, jazz, zydeco, classical, country and western, country or western, disco, rap, reggae, bluegrass? What do you like?
I like a little bit of everything.
Do you really?
I've got playlists of country. I like good country music. I've got playlists of classical. I've got playlists of Adele. I've got playlists of 80s rock. I've got playlists of what's happening, all the best stuff lately. So I've got playlists of Australian birds. Yeah. So I sit here and it's like I'm back in Australia listening to the bush. A wide variety.
So that brings up an interesting question. I'm just going to this rabbit hole. Do you ever put music to any of your analytics, like with Novak? Did he like to have music? Sometime did you ever do that?
I did at the start, and then I realized if all these Coldplay songs that I was putting out there is probably going to get me in trouble. But I didn't quite have the rights to all these Coldplay songs, so I do it less. I thought about it and did it more. The idea is good, but no, not so much lately.
I know Coldplay's lawyers are not messing around, Craig. So well done. Yeah,
because all your videos,
for me, it's the Cult and Blondie. It's not to be messed with. And the rest of them are pretty chill. Public Enemy, by the way, not only didn't sue us, but they not only didn't just like a post, they gave us one of these emojis.
Oh, really?
So shout out to some of the other music that is not so uptight.
Is that Master P with Public Enemy?
That's Chuck D. And Flavor Flav.
Flavor Flav. Oh, Flavor Flav with the big clock.
Yeah.
I think Craig needs to wear one of those big clocks. You come into a presentation, you walk in with like a big chain with a clock on it. I mean, that'd be awesome.
That's something for the future.
It's something. Yeah. All right, last question in this segment. If you're in a band, let's say I don't know if you're a musician, do you play an instrument? Just out of curiosity.
Nothing.
No. Okay, good. So this will be a good question.
He sings.
He sings. I know that.
I mean, late night, and it's only happened once or twice, but he does.
I've seen him in New Orleans. We were at one of the places one night.
What was that place?
It was a jazz place. That was a jazz place. Remember we went to that jazz?
Yeah, that was rocking.
It was awesome. Yeah, we'll go back there next time. I think in a couple of years we're going back to New Orleans again. I'm sure you'll be talking. What was the name of that place? But it was awesome. It was just. Jazz was just just going. It was
great.
And the great Craigo and CB1 were down there. Yeah, it was fun. If you're in a band, okay, what member of the band would you want to be? Would you want to be the lead singer, lead guitarist, drummer, keyboard, or guy, or bass guitarist? Is there any, glockenspiel? I play the glockenspiel. I'm a mean glockenspiel player.
You know what? My son takes drum lessons. You know, he's on the drum.
Yep.
That doesn't really appeal to me, a lot. He likes it. He's into the lessons, and he does them virtually at the moment. He's continuing, which is good. My daughter, we have a piano here in the house. My daughter's taking piano lessons. She's quite good. I think, I'm a dad, but she's quite good at 9 for piano. But, sitting there and playing the piano is not my deal. So just, I guess, throw me up front and let me go crazy and sing.
I can see that. I can see that.
Did I call that or not?
Yes, yeah. Just like NXS Mike Hutchins, right there. He's going to be
Michael
out there.
Hutchins.
Yeah, you're going to wear the leather. You can be, or you like Mick? Are you like Mick? Mick Jagger. You can do it like Jagger.
I don't think leather's really my deal. No, I'm not sure about the leather.
First paid job. When was your first paid job?
First paid job was packing groceries.
Really? In Aubrey?
In Albury, yeah. I was working at a supermarket. I was 15. I packed shelves. Now, this was also at the same time. I think I had two right at the same time. So I'd pack the shelves and I'd pack the bags. But also at the same time, my club had 3 clay courts. And on a Saturday afternoon is pennant. So all the clubs play each other Saturday afternoon. So my job was to go down with the clay courts. I would hose them down, water them down. Then we had a big roller, and I'd have to pull the big roller over 3 courts. Then I had lime, and I had to put the string out, and I had to line the 3 courts. So it was a good couple of hours. Mm-hmm. So I would prepare the 3 hard courts, the 3 clay courts, but also right around the same time as well. In the summer, I would on the grass courts, I would do the mower and I'd do the lining, and it was always so funny because it's tough on a grass court. Sometimes you want to put the line down, like the string line. You're like, I got it. And then sometimes you come back and you look at this line. It's like this.
Fishtailing.
Always good to find. There was me and a couple of others, and you get back down there at 1 o'clock for pennant, but you go around all the lines and find a bad line somebody else did and just rip them for it.
Favorite movie, TV show? What do you like to watch? Are you a movie guy, TV? What are you watching anything? Netflix, Amazon?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. I've very much drifted away from TV and movies. Now, I don't, I hardly watch TV here. I watch National Geographic documentaries. I love them. Sometimes at night when I put my daughter down, we go to Nat Geo on the app, and we got this really good series on ancient Egypt and mummies and all of that, and we watch that. From movies, listen, it's Star Wars, and I watched the Mandalorian series, but other than that, I haven't watched hardly anything at all. But Star Wars it's just the best. Nothing beats it.
R2-D2.
R2-D2. The Mandalorian series was fantastic as well. Anything Star Wars, I'm in.
Yep. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Are you a breakfast, lunch, dinner? What do you like? Breakfast?
Celery juice.
Celery juice? I thought you were going to like say breakfast tacos or something like that.
No, every morning I have the same thing. So I a while ago I got into, it's actually with COVID. I'm home all the time. When I'm on the road, it's very tough to look after your diet. So first thing every morning, I juice celery every morning. And then about 30 minutes later, I have a bowl of oatmeal with frozen wild blueberries. Warren Pretorius' wife, Jenny, put me onto this. She cut up frozen bananas and frozen blueberries, put them on the oatmeal, some cinnamon, and a little bit of granola. And then oat milk. Every morning, exactly the same.
I feel regular just hearing about it. This is brilliant. This is great.
I love it. I love it.
You probably get some prunes also, too. Do you get some prunes also, too?
That is a fantastic way to
start. Every morning. And then sometimes at lunch, I just graze. Yeah. I just graze all day, dinner, 5 minutes, but breakfast is a big deal. You know, those two things set me on the right path.
Speaking of food, okay, so this is always, I think, an interesting question that talks about your personality. So there's 4 dinner guests or more. We know that we're going to be invited to this soiree. I always like to say the word soiree. From being from Oklahoma, that's a big word for us. So you have this dinner party. Who are up to 4 people or more that you would want to invite, you know, to dinner with AJ and I and you and obviously your wife, your lovely family.
Kelly and the kids too. Yeah. But it can be any era. It can be any genre. You don't have to stick to sports. You can go to history or literature.
You know, when I initially think of this, it's like I don't want to invite tennis people or current people. I want to go back in history.
Oh yeah.
You know, whether it's a Napoleon or whether it's a Winston Churchill or whether it's you know, even some of the bad guys that were out there, like Lenin or Stalin. I mean, invite them along and question them over dinner. I would say it's you know, Cleopatra or something like that. Yeah. Or, you know, the guy that first invented fire. You know, so let's go back to the Neanderthals. Let's go back to somebody that you know, at some stage. Like I watched this thing the other night about you know, ancient civilizations, and they've just found this one in Turkey that predates the pyramids by tens of thousands of years.
I think I saw that one too. I know what you're talking about. That was a really fascinating show.
So I would like to go back in history and invite a bunch of Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal kind of people and some influential people, Attila the Hun kind of people, and sit down and go, tell us about what happened. You know, that's where my head would be.
So let me ask you a quick question here, because I'm going to divert again.
Okay.
Right? Paranormal. Did you believe in the paranormal then?
Zero.
No, because there was just a plane that just saw something that was flying over them at American Airlines. No? You're not into that, huh? No?
Not into it.
You're not into the little green men? You like Star Trek, Star Wars.
It's a little bit like analytics. It's a little bit like, if you look at a match, there's analytics to the match there's proof. Like we got proof. We got proof you made 12 backhand return errors. We got proof that your forehand is a better shot to hit in the ad court. We got proof that 60% of forehand winners are runaround forehand winners for a right-hander stand in the ad court. I got no proof there's a ghost. I got no proof. You show me something. Let me experience that, and then we're good.
Klingons, Romulans, you know, they're
Star Trek.
I need a little proof in my life at the age I'm at.
All right, you want to see the visual, huh? You want the tactile.
Let me see it. Bring it. Show it to me.
East Coast or West Coast?
West.
West Coast. What part of the West Coast?
I lived in California for a year. I loved it. Loved it. West Coast all day, every day.
Northern or Southern?
Southern Cal. I lived in Mission Viejo. I went to school in Mission Viejo. I lived in San Clemente. I lived right on the ocean. You know, Australia's very, very similar. Yeah. You know, it's outdoors. You've got yes, there's a billion people there, but you know, you've got great beaches. You've got the coast. You've got the mountains. You know, it's an arid climate like Australia. You know, California's full of eucalyptus trees, which are Australian. Mm-hmm. You know, it smells like Australia, you know, with the eucalyptus trees. So, East Coast is bad weather, pollution, too many people. Even though there's a lot in Southern Cal, I get that. Right. I get that.
Mountains or beach? You just said mountains. You said the mountains and the beach. Is one of your favorites?
I would say younger, beach, certainly now mountains. Certainly now it's the adventure of the mountains. It's the grandeur of the mountains. It's the animals in the mountains. It's the life in the mountains. It's the weather in the mountains. It's much more about that now.
So do you like to go visit Warren up in Park City?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Utah,
Yeah, we stay with Warren. This year with COVID, it's difficult, but we've gone up. Warren's very nice to host us. We do skiing in Park City and Deer Mountain. So, you know, my kids are getting good at skiing. I love skiing. I grew up skiing in Australia. Skiing's my favorite sport. It's my to go downhill first thing in the morning on a groomed run and get in a tuck and don't come out of it for 90 seconds is the greatest thing ever. It's so much fun to just go fast, So I love to ski, and I'm teaching that to my kids. And fortunately, we know somebody who lives in Park City, and Warren's very nice. Warren and Jenny are very nice to host us up there. And I bribe him with a bottle of Casamigos, and it all comes out even.
There's that good tequila.
Will you go down the ski jump there in Park City? It was right there because there's ski jump in Park City. The Olympic ski jump. Would you do that?
Yeah, we do. There's like when you're going down, there's just to the side, there's the little ski jump.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we've done that with the kids. We go in there. Yeah.
No, but the big one, the big ski jump,
So we went to that when there was the Olympic trials.
Right.
So when they had the trials to go to the Olympics, so we were there for that. It was we went to the bottom, and the races, well, the jumpers would come down, and I got photos with my kids, and that was so nice. But oh my God, I would never do that. I know I'd break every bone in my body. But the little jumps, yes, not.
Yeah, those guys have a couple of screws loose. I mean, you gotta, they're crazy.
No fear.
Yes. Sunrise, sunset. You get morning guy, evening guy.
Those are my two favorite moments. I think during the summer, certainly sunrise in the summer. I like to get up early, even though lately I haven't been getting up early, but I like to get up early. I like to see the sunrise. But, it's a really nice part of the day, the twilight at the end and the sun's going down. And, in our backyard, the sun sets out there, and, it's really nice to see the sunset. So, both are magical times of the day, but I'll go with sunrise on a warmish morning.
Now, speaking of, this is going to be the next question. All right, favorite season. We just had a season that I don't think most of us enjoyed, which was winter. Old man winter came back and bit everybody in Texas on the bowhind. So, do you like summer, fall, winter, or spring?
Summer.
Yeah,
Give me heat.
Heat. Oh yeah, you're in the capital of heat down there.
Long days, and lots of hot long days.
Yeah,
I'm in heaven.
Favorite holiday? What's your favorite holiday?
I think Christmas. I think just we're having two younger kids that that are into it. That's the one that brings them the most joy, and I think it's just I like the whole holiday atmosphere, and everybody gets in a good mood, and just the Christmas cheer, the goodwill kind of that it brings. So I'm a little bit more about that, I think.
Do you like the Australian Christmas, which is warmer than the U.S. Christmas, which is colder?
It's crazy, because it's so hot. I mean, I remember, you dress up as Santa, and it's, the traditional cold things about it. But, I've been over Christmas Day quite often could be over 100 degrees.
Yeah, exactly, down in Australia. I mean, that's why I was wondering, do you prefer one to the other? I
prefer to have an Australian Christmas for sure, a nice hot summer day, a Christmas day, definitely.
Yep. Yeah, because I've been down there in around the January. I've been down there a couple of times. It's hot down there, and so I always wondered, because they view different. You view Christmas different than we do. White Christmas, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, all that with the snow, and then you all are at the beach, having a Barbie and having a VB, right?
Yeah, cracking a couple of cold ones, and enjoying the beach for sure.
I know you don't have much spare time. What do you like to do in your spare time?
At the moment, it's take my dogs back on the trails behind the house and mountain bike. So I got a couple of dogs, Pompey and Ash, and they love to run, and we've got trails right behind. And I bought a pretty good mountain bike, several months ago, and I love getting back there and getting on the trails and getting into nature. To get on a trail right behind your house and get lost in nature within 2 or 3 minutes and not have any idea, no houses, no anything, that's a nice little escape that I can do every single day.
Good answer there. Third set now. Third set of the third set right here. We're going back to tennis now. We're going to go back to a couple of tennis things. We know you talked about tennis. When did you start playing tennis? When were you a little guy?
I started late. I think I was 11. Mm-hmm. 11 to 12. I played Australian rules football, and that's really all that mattered to me. When I was 8, 9, 10, and I found an old wooden racket in the back of my dresser, in my room, and somehow found, strings. The ball almost went through the strings. They were all broken. But I just went out to the side of the house. We had a driveway that went up the side of the house. And I just tapped it up against, the side of the side wall of the house. Just tap, 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 tap. And then those 3 courts were, a 3-minute walk away. And I went down there when I was probably 11 or 12. And I thought I'd be okay. And, I did this I had to do like an interview with their coach, George Schumack, an older coach who was probably at that time still in his 70s. And he's like, I'll feed you a few balls. He had a small group, very small group of kids. And I'm like, I'd like to join. So he fed me a few forehands, and I don't know whether I was nervous or I just don't think I was, honestly, hitting against a wall is okay, but having a ball come to me from a far distance, it just hadn't happened yet. So he got on one side of the court and hit it, and I was terrible. And I'm like, I can hit great against the wall, but this guy's hitting me these balls. I don't know where they're going. So I didn't do well. I hit forehands bad. I hit backhands bad. And it's like, you could just tell, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fail this. And then he's like, well, hit a couple of serves against the fence. And I'm like, okay. So I hit a couple of serves, and you could just tell it was like, he probably, the other kids were definitely better. He probably shouldn't have taken me, but he could just tell that I was, that I wanted it. And he's like, okay, come back tomorrow. And that was it. And, from then on, I played every single day. I was down there every day, and I never joined it was not an environment where there was an academy for kids. It was in winter, you had the 3 courts, and in summer, our club had 25 grass courts. And you just played with the people in the club. And we had a lot of really, really good adult players. And so I was either playing with juniors or playing with adults, and it was all mixed. But you just go down and play sets. Yeah. And you just play sets until it got dark. And whether it was in summer or whether it was in winter, you just went and played sets. And so I got a ridiculous amount of sets in Monday through Sunday. I needed more coaching, like I'm doing to myself now with my backhand. Yeah. If I'd had backhand when I was younger, I'm like, oh my goodness, I could have been okay. But I think playing all of these sets really helped the strategic side of understanding opponents, and probably helped me because I wasn't that good with my strokes. So I had to kind of outthink the opponent. It was probably better that they were better than me because I had to figure out a way, and play a bunch of sets doing it.
Well, we're sure.
My nickname was Super Brat. McEnroe was my hero, and I was bad. I was bad news back then. I was so passionate about tennis, but they had to there was another kid, Nick Schumack, and we used to go at it. And if you want to see bad behavior on two 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds on a tennis court, we were it. But we were fighting tooth and nail. And they'd put a sign up, the Albury Lawn Tennis Association will not tolerate offensive language, bad behavior, racket throwing, and something else that was up there. We had to walk up. But it was out of just competing hard, and we didn't know where that boundary was, and but we competed hard. We wanted it.
So you checked off all the boxes that they were saying don't do, right?
Yeah, I broke too many rackets as a kid.
Well, we're happy.
Remember when the graphite rackets come out, the Max Ply, the Max 200G Dunlop. Remember that's really thick.
Yep.
McEnroe uses Steffi. I remember on those clay courts, I'm in the back of the court. I lose a point. That racket wasn't for me anyway. It was just, but I had it because McEnroe had it.
Yeah.
I get it, and I throw it into the ground, and it hits the head and bounces up and goes over the fence onto the road. So we're in this triangle. There's a road on each side. Uh-huh. And a couple of times cars would hit in the intersection and go, come through the fence down onto the court. But I bounced it over the fence onto the road, and it didn't crack. Credit to Dunlop for making that racket.
Big credit to them. They touted. I used that racket also from about 1982 till about 93. And they always touted it as dynamic flexibility.
Yeah, it was dynamic.
Like it's going to give you touch when you hit soft, and it's going to give you power when you hit big, and it's going to bounce over fences, hit cars, and never break. And it's still true. It's the best.
But I was going to take this question out. I'm bringing it back. Most embarrassing moment in tennis. Now that you told us that you had that kind of attitude, I got to figure there's got to be an interesting moment, maybe.
Good call.
You know, I think most embarrassing moment.
I know mine. I know I have a couple, but I know one in particular.
I think there's times I've walked off the court. I remember as a junior telling myself repeatedly, if I can just keep my cool, I'm going to win this match. There's actually no problem with me winning this match. But I was, you know, there was a story about Leighton Hewitt being up like 6-love, 3-love. At 15 years of age, losing a point and throwing his racket. 6-love, 3-love.
1 point.
Because he hated to lose a point. He hated to lose a point. And I was, you know, nowhere near Leighton's level at that age, but I was a similar kind of way that I handled it is that it didn't matter. You know, I would come off matches, you know, with some pretty bad behavior, and people would go, "Oh my God, did you lose?" And I go, "No, I won 2 and 2." I would say I was embarrassed. I walked off the court embarrassed that I behaved poorly, and I really didn't need to.
Yeah.
But I found it difficult to lose points and not be upset with myself for not winning that point. But the real issue was my technique wasn't great. You know, I was probably maximizing what I had, and my image of myself was unfortunately a lot better than the reality.
I know people in Oklahoma City, and I'm sure you're going to say the same thing. They're looking at me, Craig Bell, going, "That guy's doing all this." Are there anybody in Aubrey, Australia, going, "Wow, Craig O'Shaughnessy, ATP WTA Strategist. Wow, that guy. He bounced."
It's the people you grow up with,
right?
You know, they're like, who's listening to you? we know you. We know what you're like. Who's listening to you? So. Yeah, there's a few of them back there that will put you in your place when you go home.
Yeah, real fast. Favorite tournament? What's your favorite tournament? Because you traveled them all. Wimbledon.
Country Mile. Wimbledon is the tournament that I used to go to bed at 7 o'clock at night so that I could wake up at midnight and stay up to like 4 or 5 in the morning and watch it.
Did you play this? Was that an Australian opening? It was in the U.S.
That was NBC Breakfast at Wimbledon. That gets us right here.
Oh yeah, that you never heard that?
It was Channel 9. It was Wide World of Sports, and it was Fred Stolley and John Newcomb.
Awesome.
And you know, it was this faraway world where you know, the best players played, and I followed it religiously, and I would cut out, you know, in the morning there would be the clippings in the paper, and I would cut the clippings out and make scrapbooks of all of the things that happened at Wimbledon. And you know, now for the last 4 years, I've been the strategy analyst for the tournament. And, you know, I've got my own flat screen and telestrator tools. And, you know, it's an absolute dream job. You know, I'm commentating on a Wimbledon final. The greatest... Do you have a greatest day question coming? Shall I say
no,
that?
No, keep going. Let's go down that rabbit hole.
What's the greatest day?
2018, Wimbledon men's final. So Grant Canton was the head groundsman. Neil Stubley was before that. And so Grant and Neil, two very, very good friends of mine. And, you know, during the championships, we'd always meet at 9 o'clock a.m., on center court with coffees. And I'd go into the press area. I'd get there early. I'd bring the coffees out. Every morning we'd have coffee at 9 a.m. and just shoot the breeze and, they'd invite me out to walk out on center court, and I would, look down and take some photos, and just to walk on center court at Wimbledon, knowing that play is going on that day is pretty amazing. But, I talked to Grant, a few times during the tournament about putting a net up, and which has never happened. It's groundsmen only that are the only people that have ever done it. And there's a couple of times during the tournament that I was going to do it. Grant said, well, let's do it. Let's have you do it on center court. I mean, Grant is,
wow.
How do you get any nicer than that? And a couple of times I think it was match started at 1, so I had to be there at 12. I think they were putting the net up. And a couple of times it conflicted with an interview that I was doing or something I was doing with the Wimbledon channel. And a couple of times I forgot. And then it gets to the final. And I'm like, oh, there's no chance. But I go out there at 12. And Grant goes, give me your phone. And I'm like, what for? Because I'm going to record you putting the net up on center court for the men's final.
Incredible.
I'm like, come on, you're not. He's like, give me your phone. So I've got one of the net posts. They're about 50 pounds.
The wood.
Really? 50?
Wood. It's thick. It's round and
solid
thick and
wood.
Heavy. And so I put it, there's a certain way you got to carry it over the shoulder. And he walked beside me, and I've got it. I've got the recording. So he walked beside me, and I'm talking to him, and I've got the one of the net posts. And I go to the far side, and I put it in, and it clips in. So at the bottom, there's a clip. It's all metal. It goes into a metal plate, and there's a metal clip so that there's no movement. So I take it out, I clip it in. Then we bring the net over, I put it in, and I wind the net up for the men's final in 2018. Now, just goosebumps. Yeah. This is Fantasyland, but it's just even Fantasyland to walk on the court, just to put a foot on it, let alone put the net up, let alone it's the final. Now, then factor in, I'm coaching Novak. I'm doing the game plan. The other guy, Kevin Anderson, I used to coach. So I've got to, I know both guys. So I do the game plan for the guy that wins it. Mm-hmm. And during the match, I'm commentating for the Wimbledon channel with a great commentator, Rob Walker. So Rob and I are commentating. I've done the game plan and coaching, and I've put the net up. It was literally the greatest day of all time.
Remarkable.
Did you take any grass? It's just between our secret here, between us guys. Did you take any grass?
I tried to. Sometimes, there's a tuft will come up because, especially after day like, at the end of the first week, where guys are starting to drag their toes and dig into it. And I remember once there was this big tuft of grass that came up, and Grant kind of grabbed it and threw it to the side. I'm like, oh my goodness. I immediately got a vision. I'm going to take that back to Austin and plant it in my front lawn.
There you go.
And my whole front lawn will now be this Wimbledon ryegrass. But I did take it and I did save it, and it did immediately die.
Of course.
But yeah. So I've got photos of clumps of grass. The mower goes out there, and everything possible to do with grass courts.
Did you ever do the John Barrett commentating? He'd do
be very silent.
Oh, he was so silent. John Barrett, the great English announcer.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice point, Mr. Connors.
So understated. Substance only.
I just remember listening to him a couple of times. He might have had 3 words in a minute one time. And I was like, wow, that is tradition there, baby. I'm telling you, that's some white strawberries and cream.
That really is.
It was funny. Okay. Yep.
Rob and I usually talked a little bit more than that. We were loving it and talking strategy, and we go at it a little more.
Do you like to watch tennis on TV? I assume you do.
Not as much as you would think, because I'm doing it so much now. So, for instance, when a match is on, whether it's, and if I'm not there, like, for instance, Jan's going to play Goffin first round in Rotterdam in a couple of days. It's going to be broadcast live on Tennis TV. I won't watch it. I will follow it in the app. I will see the scores. There is nothing worse ever than following a tennis match on an app and just seeing point by point, because it's difficult. It's really, really tough. But the thing is that when the match is finished, the match is going to be tagged, and then I'm going to be doing a review of it. So if I watched all of the matches live, which will be the first time, then I'm going to watch them all again to tag them and do analysis. That'll be a second time. And it just becomes too much. So certain matches, yes, but in general, I actually enjoy following it on the app, because I'll just kind of look in and I know what he's feeling. I know what the score is. And it's so funny is that every time you open the app, it's like 4-all, 30-40. It's like the most important moment in the entire match. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is the chance to either lose it or to win it. And but I follow a lot of them just point by point in the app, and don't watch as many because it just becomes so time consuming.
Can you watch just a tennis match and not let the mind start thinking strategy? I mean, just like a normal person anymore? Or does your mind go, okay, he should have gone cross court, he should have gone down the line, or that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff? It can't just relax and just watch. Yeah.
I tagged a match earlier this afternoon. I watch when I'm tagging matches, and when I say I'm tagging, I'm just pulling points out that I want to show the player.
Sure.
I turn it to 4 times speed. So I watch the entire match, and I've got basically a tagging panel that's got 4 buttons: a start and stop, and it's like the player won the point serving or lost the point serving, or the opponent won serving or lost serving. And I watch 4 times speed, and I just go start, stop, I don't want it. Start, stop, yeah, I want it, because the person that we're going to play lost it. So I'll watch a match at 4. I watch most of my tennis at 4 times speed, sometimes 2 times speed. When I'm tagging, never in real time. It's just too slow.
It probably makes your ball machine feel like it's nothing. You're just ripping it. Like, I'm used to a lot faster than this.
Yeah, the ball machine's a great investment. Yeah. I love it.
Watching some of those old classic tennis matches on TV, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I must have been really bad because I can't beat these guys. These guys are looking like they're going at like -10 speed.
They're going so slow.
And I'm like, how could we be that bad? And because in my mind, I was really good. I was like those people at the tennis congress. Oh yeah, I did 4 or 5 rallies. I was hitting winners all over the place. But I guess I wasn't really. So, but okay, next question. Favorite tennis player?
Certainly, it was when I was a kid. It was McEnroe. It was. I was obsessed. I remember going to a tournament, and it was just like a development, just like a state development, weird kind of deal. And there was this other kid that wore feeler, that dressed like Borg, that played like Borg. That's he's 14. I'm 14. Dressed like McEnroe, playing like McEnroe, serving like McEnroe, and we both made the final, and it made all these coaches that were there, it made their millennium. These 2 14-year-old Borg McEnroe clones. Going
and you're left-handed.
And I'm lefty.
Yeah.
And I brought all the fire as well. So yeah, I was obsessed as a younger kid with everything, everything about his game. So early on, McEnroe had this monstrous kind of impression on me.
Did you wear the headband? Did you have early 80s Johnny Mac?
My hair didn't warrant wearing it. I did have hair. But
I know, but I just
headband was no. That was the one thing I didn't have. Australian, you got to wear a hat. You have no option. Headbands. For me, it just didn't work.
John had that. I just still remember that picture. He had all this hair, and then he had that goofy-looking headband on. Look, like, take that off. Don't even wear that. I know you've got kids. Do they play tennis? Are they recreational players, competitive? Do they like to play?
Rourke turns 14 today. He got a couple of new rackets for his birthday. He's traditionally played soccer, but his kind of losing a little bit of interest in that and gaining a lot of interest in tennis. Just the fact that, I'm my own boss, whether I win or lose or how much time I get to play. And he's really starting to enjoy it. And I'm really enjoying being out there on the court with him. So and he's, you know, got really good technique from a younger age when we did get out on court. So, getting into that more, and Riley, not so much.
More of a soccer girl, like
exactly. Yeah, she likes soccer, and she'll be back to soccer as soon as she can.
What sport? I have an idea, but what sport would you have played if it wasn't tennis?
Well, I played Australian rules football.
Yeah. Right, I remember that. Cricket?
Yeah.
Did you like cricket?
No cricket, because cricket's a summer sport, and I just had no chance to play cricket because of tennis. But I remember being 16, and my parents said, you got three things. You've got school, you've got football, and you got tennis. And you got to cut it to two. And I said, well, school's gone.
Sorry.
No, school's not gone.
No.
So I had to give up football at 16 because it was just, you know, it was time to focus on something. And, but I really enjoyed it. I was never going to be good enough to make it to a professional level in football. But I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, you know, the team aspect and the physicality of it and the running. And, you know, when I was a young kid, especially probably in the, 8 to 14 range, that's when I really, really enjoyed, probably even up to 16. I really enjoyed Aussie rules football. So that was that was something that was a lot of fun to be involved with.
Hey, who was your favorite Aussie rules player at the time? Lee Matthews? Matthews? Lethal Lee?
No, he played for Hawthorn.
I know.
Yeah, he was the enemy. A lot of respect, but he was the enemy. Yeah, there we go.
He had the elbow, man. I saw him knock some people out. Oh, no, man. He
was Neville Bruns. And Bruns was Lee was the fairest player of all time until he clotheslined some guy that wasn't looking on the other team and basically broke his jaw and put him in hospital and out of the game.
Right.
And then that was like dirty, really dirty. We had when in the late 80s, no, the late 70s, early 80s, sorry, for Essendon, down at, they called him the Flying Dutchman. His name was Paul van der Haar, and he was kind of the forward, the leaping high marks and spectacular forward play. And, he was so exciting. When Paul van der Haar was, that was real early on. I was probably like 14 or 15 at the time. But he was a big deal on my team back then.
Yeah, I just liked Aussie football. I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma City with a bunch of Aussies. They told me, and ESPN at that time needed content, so I'd never heard of it. Gosh, growing up, but they had a lot of Aussie rules football on ESPN. That's actually my favorite sport, and I got to stand at the MCG a couple of times. I was like, it's like you at Wimbledon. I was standing there going, I cannot believe I'm standing here at the MCG. I mean, it was unbelievable. At the G, I guess, as you all call it down there.
Exactly.
All right, we're rounding the corner. Got last two questions. All right. If you wouldn't have been involved in sports, if you wouldn't be a sports guy, what would you be doing right now, you think?
I think journalism. I think writing. I greatly enjoy it. I enjoy the storytelling side of it, not so much just the straight factual basis. I think, I always had the idea coming out of college that the best sporting journalism was Sports Illustrated. The stories that they would tell. I remember, at its height when it was a thick magazine, when it really mattered, when everybody had to have that magazine. You could be reading a story about a Ukrainian weightlifter that you've never heard of, but it would almost bring you to tears. The storytelling that magazine had, week after week was amazing. So I would say I would have probably gone down that route.
Work for a Sports Illustrated or something like that. Yeah. Not necessarily a novelist, but just
because right out of high school, I worked for a newspaper for a year and a half.
Oh, really?
So I didn't go from high school to U.S. college tennis. I actually applied to work as a journalist. It's not so much that I didn't get it, it's like they just didn't have a spot. Sure. I applied, they're like, you fit the bill, but we've got no spot for you right now. So I had to go to college. I went to Deakin University, and I'm a month in, and they call me back and go, we got a spot now. Do you want to? And then they're like, do you want to go to Deakin for 4 years to come back and take this same spot, or do you want it now? I'm like, I'll take it now.
Right now.
So then I worked for a year and a half, and then I'm like, I love tennis too much. I can go to college and study journalism and play college tennis and kind of combine both of that. So I worked for a year and a half. Then I did nothing. I came out and went to PBI after college and did nothing with journalism for 20 years. Then started writing for the New York Times. So that was interesting. They approached me to get some information about serving data for a pre-US Open lift out they were going to put in. And they said, do you have any serve data? And I'm like, yeah, I got lots of it. Well, we're looking for a story. Can you give it to us? I'm like, well, why don't I write the story?
Yeah, right.
They're like, well, how are you going to write the story? I'm like, well, I worked as a journalist. Like, okay. So I wrote the story, and they said, wow, this is really good. Are you going to be at the Open? I'm like, yes, I'm actually going to be coaching at the Open. They're like, well, can you write some analysis pieces on these matches? And up until then, literally nowhere was this style of writing occurring, where it was almost like a coach was writing the story. All tennis journalism was who won, what was the score, just very basic stuff. But this was real strategy of what was going on. And so that started my writing for the New York Times. Then the ATP came to me and said, well, we have none of these kind of stories on our website at all. Can you write for us? And that started the relationship with the ATP of writing a match breakdown. So I worked for two newspapers. One is a small country hometown newspaper, and one is the New York Times.
The biggest, right.
The Aubrey Times Herald or something like that?
The Border Mail, Border Morning Mail. But we shortened everything in Australia. MCG, Melbourne Cricket Ground, MCG, G.
The G.
The Border Morning Mail ended up as the Border Mail.
The Border Mail, yeah. Yeah, fun stuff. Okay, last question.
Great
Here it is.
turn.
This is it. We spend a lot of time, and we certainly appreciate this. This is the big one. All right, so if you could be the commissioner of the great game and you had the magic wand, you can do anything you want to. Is there something that you would change about the game? Would you leave it the same? What are your thoughts on the game and where it is today, and what if you do anything?
I would definitely start changing some things for sure. So the first thing to understand about our sport is that we desperately need half of our sport to have the same thing day in and day out, and the other half of the sport to embrace diversity. So, for example, when we play on grass courts, we play on clay courts, we play on hard courts, we used to play on carpet, we can play indoor, we can play outdoor, we can play in shade, we can play in hot, so we have so many different ways that our sport is played throughout the year, which makes it great. And, you can be Kevin Anderson and 6'9" and make the top 10, and you can be Diego Schwartzman and 5'9" and make the top 10. So that side of it, we've got enough things in our sport that are different, that make it unique, and players with different game styles. I mean, you can make the top 10 with lots hitting tons of spin or no spin, or coming forward or staying back. Lots of different ways to play our sport, lots of different surfaces and conditions and environments and countries. I mean, there's so many different things, different balls, different court surfaces. These players are going from one city to the next. What does the court feel like? What is the court speed? Which ball are we playing with? It's all so different. So all these differences help our sport. But on the other side of it, we've got all these differences that hurt our sport. So governing our sport, we have the ATP, the WTA, and the ITF. We don't need three. Collecting data for our sport, we have IBM, we have SAP, we have Infosys, we have Hawkeye, and then we have all the other little. French Federation has their own, the USTA have their own and don't share it. The Australian Federation has their own and will take data. If the match is played in Australia, they will not give the data, this extra data to the opponent, but they'll use it for Australian players and only for Australian players. So we've got the way our sport is governed hurts us. The way, because we don't have a commissioner, hurts us. The way that with the men's tour and the women's tour, you know, there's lots of good talk recently. The way we're not together hurts us. The way that the slams have 60% of the prize money and basically don't care about anybody. Well, that's not true. They do care. And Wimbledon especially, you know, the amount of money that they've given back and the amount of support they're playing, they do care. But the lack of interaction between an ATP event and a Grand Slam event, I would like to see things become as one. The other thing from an analytics standpoint, you can play on court 18. I remember, you know, working with Dustin Brown, and he's playing, you know, on court 17 or 18 or 16 at the US Open. And then also working with another player, you know, let's call it Berrettini out on center court. And you go in and say, okay, both of these players are playing in the same event. Surely they're being treated exactly the same by the tournament. No. So you go and look at the analytics. Anybody that plays on center court is going to have 10 pages of analytics that ultimately is going to be a huge benefit for that player to understand what's going on about their game and also about the opponent. On court 16, you got 6 line items.
That's it.
They don't care. It's unfair. It's unfair. And there is an element of this, is that who's winning all the time at the moment? It's Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. But those 3 guys don't get treated the same at the event. There has to be a better system when you arrive at an event, and let's call it a Grand Slam. There's 128 players. Mm-hmm. Those 128 players are not treated equally by the event. The event is going to prosper and make more money, and probably our sport is going to be better if Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic wins it. The further they go in the draw, there's going to be more global interest. But ultimately, it makes it more unfair for the players that are further down the rankings, or from a country that's, you know, Estonia or something like that. It's just not an even playing field. It's not. And so the organization of our sport needs to become more unified, and the opportunity given at the event to the players needs to become much more even. Just the fact you can go to an ATP 250 and the top 4 to 6 guys all get a bye, and not only are they getting a bye, which they shouldn't in a 32 draw, they're getting second round prize money and second round points. They haven't won a match. They'll lose. They'll play the first round. A person that loses in the first round will lose and get first round points. A seed will lose in the second round and get second round points. That's not fair.
Not fair.
That's not fair. So, you know, I used to coach guys. I spent a decade coaching guys that were 100 in the world to 200 in the world. And then I extracted myself out and went to the top. But, you know, I've been with those guys, and I know what they go through, and it's not an even playing field, and it needs to be more even. And there's a layer of that we don't talk about, why we're in this golden era of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, because they get looked after at a different level, and the opportunities they get are not the same, and they need to be the same. Once you enter a tournament and you're in that tournament, it has to be the same. It has to be the same opportunity with everything that's given to you.
Commissioner O'Shaughnessy has spoken.
That's right.
Great.
Boy, that's great.
Great answer. And
there's no reason we can't.
Yeah. No real reason.
Well, what about prize money distribution? I mean, should there be a little bit more equitable? I mean, I know the ATPs, they run. It's kind of like the inmates running the asylum. You know, to me, that's they kind of set up what they want to do, and then you know, I get it that Fed and Joker and Rafa make a lot of money, but at the same time, it just doesn't seem like it trickles down to the 128 guy that you're talking about right there.
Yeah, I think lately that the everyone's done a better job of that.
Okay,
I think, you know, we were seeing $100,000 to, if you lose in the first round of a slam, you know, the Australian Open's $100,000. That's great. I remember when it used to be $22,000. You know, $100,000 is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, and at the moment, because of COVID, you look at these, the ATP 250s that were paying, I don't know, $70,000 to win one of those. It's now down to like $22,000. And the players are all like, now they're realizing how good they had it and the amount of prize money. You know, if I understand that, you know, it's, you know, you can look at it a lot of different ways, but $100,000 to lose a tennis match ain't bad.
That's pretty good.
And then a tennis player is going to say, well, you know, I've got to pay tax on that. You're right. I've got a coach, I've got a physio, I've got this, I've got expenses, I've got a hotel. Yeah, I know you've got all those, but part of that is a little bit of your choice to bring your own physio and bring your own coach. I understand that. You know, everyone's got expenses, but I think in general, the prize money for the lower level has been recognized and is being paid better at the moment. I think that's one area where we're doing better. I mean, you can be, you know, if you're 50 in the world or 100 in the world, you know, you can still make, if you're 50 in the world, you'd be making over $1 million.
That's pretty good.
Yes, you've got expenses, but you arrive at the tournament, you don't pay a hotel for yourself. You don't pay a hotel. And quite often, if you want your coach to stay with you, then you don't have a hotel expense. Yeah. All your food's taken care of. So, you know, that side of it, I think, is getting better.
Yeah. Back in the day, there used to be 3 or 4 guys sleeping in the same room, or maybe even in a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah, it did. But, you know, that helps build a little character. And you know, those people look back. There's a lot of good stories and a lot of good times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That were had there as well.
Yeah. No, it's I'm glad to hear it's getting better, because I'm just a guy sitting here in the office and kind of looking out from the different arena than you are, you know, because if it's getting better, that's great, because it needed to, because it was really bad there for a while.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Yeah, it has been recognized.
Yeah.
And then you know, I must give Wimbledon credit. You know, they paid everybody like a first round prize money out of, you know, they didn't hold the tournament. Yes, they got the insurance, and they didn't have to pay 128 players first round prize money, but they did. You know, Wimbledon have earned a lot of money, and they're the first to give back and the first to say, hey, you're in trouble over there, we're going to help you out. So, you know, hats off to Wimbledon.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, Craig O'Shaughnessy, hats off to you. You've been a tremendous guest, very generous with your time and talent and opinions, and it's been an absolute honor. We greatly appreciate you joining us tonight. Really
well, we didn't get to talk to the Australian wrap-up. We were going to talk about that, but I guess you have to come back again and talk about the.
We'll do it again.
Yeah,
we'll do it again. Absolutely, love to.
Yeah,
gentlemen, it was my pleasure to spend time with you and chat, and hopefully, you know, we covered a lot of topics that hopefully some people found interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for enjoying it with us. Thank you, Craig.
Well, your buddy Homer Munoz said, can't stop listening to Craig. So he's your buddy from T-Bar.
Homer's the best. Homer's the best. I used to give Homer some lessons. Yeah. Really good forehand. We always needed to work on Homer's backhand. Loves to go to the net. Loves tennis. So, Homer, great to hear from you as always.
Maybe he needs to come down here on the ball machine with you or go to France.
Yeah. We'll make our backhands good enough so that France will let us in the country.
I like it.
COS.
Okay.
Adios.
All the best, buddy.
All right.
Happy birthday to your boy, and tuck that kid in, hit some balls with him tomorrow.
Yeah, so we'll see you later. All right. Well, thank you again, once again. We'll
All right, time for the dismount.
It is,
that
man.
Was a blast.
Wow, that was 2:48 in there.
Yeah, close to 3 hours with the man. That was a blast.
Yeah, that was awesome right there.
He's a remarkable guest.
Oh, that was. You know, I had a whole bunch more questions, but I thought, hey, let's.
We'll do a COS part 2 one day.
Yeah, we covered a lot of territory.
Maybe we'll do a little Roland Garros tournament with him.
Yeah,
that'd be a good one.
So, all right, shall we? Nope. Let's do the exit music right there instead of the intro music. Let's do the exit music right there. There we go. There's the great James Scott Campbell. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to Season 1, Episode 78. That's pretty good. Not bad. Of At the Net Podcast. Join us next week as we'll be talking with Jeff Puhan. That's Dr. Richie's
right.
buddy.
And Dr. Richie, Dr. Richard Cohen will be with us.
I think he's going to jump in also, next Sunday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be March. That's going to be in March. Can you believe that?
March 8th, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're already into the March time frame. But also join us on Wednesday night. We do tennis shorts, right? We were talking about tennis shorts a little bit.
We'll do tennis shorts. We've got a nice dedicated following. We are considering Stereo, the app, and we'll probably roll with Instagram one more week. And we'll evaluate what we're doing it on. But do join us. That's 8 Central and 9 Eastern on Wednesday nights.
Wasn't that a song by the Cars in the early 80s? Stereo. Life's moving in stereo.
Yeah.
I just thought of that right there. Lastly, be sure to tell a friend or friends, because hopefully your peeps like us. We like your peeps, right?
Yeah, share it, subscribe, like. You know what to do.
Right, yeah. We'd love to have your peeps be a part of our peeps be netheads, right? We call them netheads around here.
Netheads, at the net.
All right, so and lastly, we really appreciate you all watching. Craig O'Shaughnessy, what a great guest. He's just a very nice guy. That might have been our longest interview ever. I mean, we were still going. We could still learn some more from Craig O. He's always a great guy. He's very generous with his time. All right, well, everybody, that's the tennis news as it
seems to us.
Good evening from Dallas, Texas, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.